And there we go. We're up.
We found ourselves online again one more evening.
Already got a couple folks on.
Excellent.
Yeah, well, it's good.
People are excited about maybe the new Smoking Oak stuff coming down the
And,
pipeline.
yeah, there's lots of surprises coming this evening. Hey,
It's a few, yeah. Voice is finally back from those who were watching the YouTube channel. I lost it altogether about 3 days ago.
so you think that was AC? Hey?
It's got to be. Like it couldn't have been anything else. I didn't have a runny nose, didn't have a sore throat, didn't even feel bad. I just woke up and it was gone.
Wasn't from days and days of spraying herbicide or nothing.
It very well could have been that too. I lost the taste there for a while. That wasn't COVID. That was strictly because that chemical. I could just feel it on that green sweater.
Really?
That's one thing that I guess no sprayer manufacturer figured that out. Like it's very hard. And when you're custom spraying, so you're just moving. If I'm doing all my cereals, I'll do them all at once.
Yeah.
But if someone phones, oh, can you throw in a quarter of canola? So now you're cleaning this whole thing out.
Sure.
From the tank to the filters to the booms, just to do 160 acres is like an hour and 45 minutes.
What a time. Man.
And then switch it all back over and clean all that out. The filters are up under there and they're like 2-inch. So by the time that all runs down your body, I guess you should wear a wetsuit, but at plus 26, how fun is that?
I think the manual that you just sent me actually had a guy in a full like hazmat suit.
Oh, if you followed that, you would get nothing done, right? It's like anything the government tries to get involved in, right? From commercial trucking to, like, if you followed their rules and their recommendations, I mean, yeah, their heart's in the right place and want you safe or whatever, but good Lord, you'd never get nothing done. Yeah. Zero. And you probably got heat exhaustion.
You never get heat exhaustion,
right?
But you'd be able to talk.
Yeah, you would. Well, maybe not. Like you'd fry your brain because that stuff's hot.
Get heat stroke. Yeah.
And you're up and down and in and out and hooking up hoses, and you got to get in and out of the cab a few times because maybe the new sprayers are better. They probably are, but some of the controls are in the cab. So you just get all this rubber stuff on and gloves, climb up the stairs, open the door.
Doesn't sound very enjoyable.
Take it all off just because the seats and stuff is all fat. Excuse me. Flip the switch, get back out, put it all back on. It gets like so you can't. No, it's just you gotta. I mean, you be as careful as you can, and you try to manage properly, right? And we talk management on a few live streams.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't learn a thing.
You didn't learn anything.
I didn't learn.
Well,
nothing
we're going to learn lots tonight.
We are going to learn lots tonight.
What you're talking about does not sound like a very good time. Maybe it's a good reason to just quit the farm.
I said that. Well, in the short that I put out today,
I seen that. Yeah.
It was getting to me. You know, I mean, the stuff was piling up at home. We got quite a bit going on with the house. Now, I'm not a carpenter, and I'm not. But there's things I could be doing. We're digging in the power, we're digging in the water. That's been left with my dad and my wife, and Mom's been looking after the kids, and I've been getting up at whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't get up super early, but I'm usually gone by 8, and I'm not back till 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever. Yeah. And somebody's trying to help me by bringing that water trailer around and that tender trailer and stuff. And
wow. Well, I really appreciate you being able to come tonight.
We finished on Thursday.
Yeah.
No, today's Thursday. We finished yesterday. Last night I finished
spraying last night.
Finished spraying last night. I was actually over east here too.
Oh, really?
So.
And the house is like looking pretty mint, eh?
I'm excited. Yeah,
There's walls.
There's a roof. There's walls and roof. They almost got it shingled today. Windows are in. Quite a bit of the plumbing's done inside. I've only been over there I think 4 or 5 times since they started, and now was the first time I was like, yeah, this is actually kind of neat.
Right on.
Because that also at 30 degrees or whatever we hit today.
It's 32.
That old tin trailer, it gets warm.
Like a can of beans in there, eh?
It gets warm. So.
Yeah. But it'd be a perfect day to shingle the roof.
I got to hand it to them. Oof. Actually, it's one guy doing it by himself. So.
Well, that was when we built ours. It was 2018. It was 36 degrees. We had one, I don't know, it was like 17-year-old kid up there nailing shingles. And he made it like 7 hours. And he's just like, I'm going to die. And he had to come down.
Oh.
And he'd come back the next day and he plowed through it. But those shingles, you could have a hurricane and they will not move. Like they're glued to that OSB.
Glued together.
Oh, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, that's right. Who we got on this evening? We got Chad. Good evening. Alberta Boy at Spread. Hey, gents. No sound on my end. Good evening. Anyone else having sound issues? Good evening. It was on my end. Well, thankfully we resolved that because we've been talking for like 5 minutes straight.
Talking to nothing.
Can you turn the mic volume up, please? Well, let's turn the dial and see what happens. I don't know how this works.
I'm holding back a little bit too, just because I don't want to be squeaking like a 14-year-old. So
Yeah.
But I could lean in, I suppose. I got to
I'll
sit
turn
up.
the dial.
I got to sit up higher, anyways.
I
Like
don't actually
stand.
know if that does anything.
But I'm always slouching, and you're always.
The chairs
I
kind of
know.
make you lean. They want to make you lean back and be super comfortable. But anyways, we'll try and sit up prim and proper for everybody. Shoulders back, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, as we alluded to this evening, we're going to be talking about when's a good time to get out of hobby farming, right? How to quit hobby farming. And we've got all kinds of stuff all around us. Big changes, big announcements coming, right?
Absolutely. It's well, a lot of things arrived this week that we've been waiting on.
Yeah.
And,
so you brought the tickle trunk. What did you bring?
So we got Chad got the coffee cup, the only coffee cup we sent out so far.
Yeah.
Because we were waiting on our whiskey glasses, which came in, so they're now. Is that up there?
Yeah, it's tough to see it there with the light.
Anyways,
kind of glares.
I'll probably take a picture of these and put them up too. But these are smoking oak glasses, similar to the original Kirkfell and Bloom Enterprise cups that we had, but now they got smoking oak on.
Pretty tight.
I do wish they were a little darker, but that is what it is. We'll have to figure something out going forward.
The whiskey's going to taste the same out of them.
Yeah, it does. I filled it up with.
If you go right to the top of the logo,
it looks cool.
It really pops out.
Right? Yeah, and
it'd be just enough for an evening.
You look cool too, walking around like that. Nobody judges you.
Nobody say anything. Yeah,
so
nobody would dare.
Then what else did we get? We got sweaters.
Should we pull it out?
We may as well.
I mean, we're here.
We'll get through it because we're going to get rambling later on.
And then we're going to forget.
And then we're going to forget. And we're not going to have time.
Do I dare unfold this thing?
Yeah, well, I folded it. So
you folded it? So
we had to find something a little bit lighter color, yet again with sublimation. The
nice hooded sweatshirt.
The fabric really soaks that up. So we got a few
soft,
of those.
Hey, what is that?
That's
llama?
What's that?
Llama?
Yeah, that's the highest quality
merino.
It's from.
I think with sublimation you got to use like polyester or something. They can't use cotton, right? Is that?
Yeah, I tried to look it up. We're fairly new to it. There's quite a bit going on with it. You got to know how long to heat it for without burning it. You gotta. But
camera.
If we would have used, white, it would have came out dark and everything. But a lighter color works. So.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. There.
Chad says use his coffee cup. So that's awesome. Logo's pretty cool. Kristen's on too. I don't think we got Kristen her coffee cup yet. So
nope.
You should, Kristen, if you're listening, just send us your address. And I think she's close by. I might even just drive by and just deliver it.
If you'd rather a whiskey glass.
Yeah, whatever you'd prefer, let us know. What else? Okay, we said we were going to change the game. We're going to change the game. I don't know which cigar we're gonna have tonight, but new cutter.
That's for the 70 ring gauges.
So yeah, you brought the 70 ring gauge. Was that 2 live streams ago?
Yeah.
Was that Texas Lancero?
Texas Lancero.
That was a big honking beast, and we really struggled with the original cutter, which is probably like a 58 ring gauge. It's not stamped on it what it's good for, but. So I went over to Cedar Gems and said, hey, here's the problem. How can you solve this? And she whipped out this. It's called the Vertico. I think it's called the Big Daddy.
Very cool.
Anyways, 80 ring gauge. Like you could literally stuff a square hay bale in there.
Did they have a 80 ring gauge for you to look at or what?
They had a 70. They brought a 70 out and we held it up. And so this is like, we'll chop that all day long. So that was kind of cool. The other thing, we've been fighting around with this little torch lighter, and it's good, but it's pretty inconsistent in its flame delivery. I was like, enough of this, no more amateur hour. We're going big time, we're going pro. The Regal table lighter, satin stainless steel, wrapped in black leather.
That is an impressive thing.
And inside,
like a flamethrower.
It's got a mirror.
Oh, yes.
Folks, you can see it's got a mirror on it. So as you're lighting your cigar, you can actually see the tip of your cigar. That's one thing, because the cigar is always facing away from you when you're trying to light it. So you really can't see what you got going on this time. You can see it happen live in front of you. So that's pretty cool. There's a lot of fire comes out there.
That's for the 70 ring gauges.
It's a big beast, yeah. So pretty excited about that one. And then we talked about maybe running a more long-term competition, hey? Play the long game.
And go big or go home with that as well, too.
So what do we got for subscribers now? It's like 45. It's a very small, intimate group. You know, and I mean, we really appreciate that small, intimate group because they tune in every single time we do one of these. So that's awesome. But if you can refer some people, send the link to them, send the channel to them, get them to subscribe. Let us know that they subscribe. Because of that referral, we're going to enter your name into a draw for, drum roll.
Here we go.
That was a pretty big drum roll.
That is top shelf.
Your very own humidor. Picked up this baby the other day. So if it's of interest to you, we entered. Oh, the smell on this is just, have a smell of that. Like just the cedar is just amazing.
Oh, yes.
Like it's an unforgettable scent. But
glass top too. Those are very top shelf.
Rosewood with gold finish. It's got a shelf in it. And I think this is actually the same size as ours. So it should hold 150 cigars, right?
Yeah, thereabouts.
So
probably if you go 7-inch 70 ring gauge, you won't get 150.
You maybe get a few less.
But if you are reasonable about it,
you get a few less. Yeah,
you'll get some in there.
Maybe get like 6 or 7. Yeah, well, that's good. But speaking of 70 ring gauge, what does the old larynx have an appetite for this evening?
Well, we can do either one. We were going to. We have another 70 ring gauge. It is a Naya F8 Big Jack, but I was worried at the start of the week. I said, Stan, I don't know. We should plan ahead and maybe go with something more reasonable because I don't want to run just a full assault on my throat. But I'm feeling pretty good. So the other one we were going to do was the Romeo Juliet. I started looking at it. I was doing a little bit of a whatever you want to call it on the cigar, and there's quite a story to that. So I would like to. I think we'll put that off.
You're going to defer that.
I want to get the rest of that story. That is an impressive cigar. So the Naya F8, on the other hand, is basically it's like your $10 to $15 cigar, 20 to 30 if you're in Canada.
But it's lots.
But it's impressive. So it's a
let's dig it out.
It's a product of Nicaragua. Each cigar is hand rolled by an experienced roller that only rolls in that size. These come in 6 sizes, from 5-inch 52 ring gauge right up to 7-inch 70 ring gauge. Once made, these cigars are stored in a escaparate, which is effectively just
it's a humidor for a room, right?
Yeah, it's just a showroom effectively. All your window shopper.
Yeah,
that's an escaparate. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I know that now. So created by Robert Paleo Duran. His home was in Havana, Cuba. He was an expat to the States. His cigar making lineage goes back to 1928. He wanted to start his own brand. He recruited some of the most respected Cuban master blenders and farmers to bring the Cuban style to America. So this cigar is an example of old world Cuban style, powerful but with a spicy character, without the spicy character, which usually dominates most contemporary full-bodied cigars.
You would usually see a lot of pepper in one of these, yeah.
Yeah. So once you're past the oily chocolate Ecuador wrap, you get Nicaraguan binder, and then a hefty blend of Nicaraguan long filler included fermented Nicaraguan ligero, and you'll expect flavors of cedar, leather, earth, and nuts. And then it was interesting. It said complemented by a razor sharp burn.
I'm excited about that, but I'm picking up hints of wet barn.
Is it like that? Is it like the Texas
Texas
Lancero?
It kind of does smell like wet straw and afterbirth. I don't know.
I don't know why these look cool. And when you read about 70 ring gauge, it's basically they found a need in the North American market for it. People wanted bigger cigars.
Yeah.
But in our experience, I don't know why, if it's just too much coming at you, but they smell horrible until you like them.
Until you liked it. Yeah. Yeah. It's just the fermented tobacco. There's such a volume of it. I see you're peeling your band. I noticed mine is actually pre-split already. But when you unwrap it, you see the very base drab green, Canadian label that's on there. But when you peel it off, the artwork that's on some of these is absolutely gorgeous. It's, it's an expression of the cigar itself. So
yeah, I get the mouse nest.
most definitely, yeah.
Like that old cardboard box that someone threw like a bunch of like too big of nuts and bolts and random parts that you're never going to use again.
Been sitting in the shed.
You fish that out.
Humid and
then it comes apart and everything falls on the floor and then it's like poof, and that's what this is.
Aroma. It's
If you can understand.
I don't know
that.
if we're really convincing anybody.
We're probably never going to get a sponsorship by
Kristen said that does not sound very appetizing. No, that's the truth. It's but once they're lit, everything changes.
It very much does. That Texas Lancero was exactly like that. It smelled exactly like the glove box of an old grain truck.
But once it's lit, it's almost like it's like a rich perfume. Like not incense, but there's definitely a perfume to it, right? So
absolutely.
You might as well christen the lighter. Have a go.
I gotta get this chopped off here. How much are you supposed to take off? Well, this is not a chisel tip. This is what?
No, you just need to take 1/16 of an inch, just enough to break the wrapper open.
I don't think
go with the Big Daddy.
For reference, I don't think this will work.
I think you could get there.
Oh, maybe.
Just the tip.
Just the tip.
Let's have a look. See.
You probably could though. Yeah.
I think you could, but you might butcher it, and then you'd end up chewing tobacco all night. Which would be less enjoyable. Look at that.
That is top shelf. Do a draw check. That was one thing too about that Texas Lancero. It seemed the bigger the cigar, the easier the draw was. Oh yeah. Wow. It's amazing that I guess maybe it's not as tightly wrapped, perhaps. Yeah, how does this get your
Well, that's got a lot of draw on it.
I can see myself. Gentle roast.
Yeah, you gotta toast it a little bit.
It's gonna take some time to get figured out on this.
There's a lot of fire coming out of there. Like you should.
Oh, it's like an upside down rocket ship.
You should probably get a permit or something.
This will probably be a better one for tonight. Anyways, there's quite a bit on.
I think it's going to be quite the conversation topic.
Well, it's no easy decision, I wouldn't think, when you are sitting back and you finally decide to pull the trigger and move back to town.
This wasn't even one of our subjects, was it? This came from Kent.
Yeah, I don't believe this was even on the poll.
Kent Sully, he's out in Bear Canyon there.
That is instant spice.
Chances that's a damn flamethrower. Yeah, I don't know how much butane this thing's going to go through, but keep it there.
Well, we've said that before. We didn't pick a cheap hobby, and like nothing about it. Even just keeping the glycerin and in the humidor and the butane and the lighter.
That's a lot of cigar already.
I still can't get over how easy air flows through the big ones.
That's got a lot better draw, hey?
And those what we had last time, we had the
Monte Cristo.
Yeah, and I think I struggled to keep that lit.
That was a real struggle. But that too may have been transportation. It hadn't acclimated to the humidor yet.
They did say
these have been in there now
better.
for what, like 5 weeks, 4 weeks?
Yeah, probably about that.
They've been a while, right? So it should burn really nicely.
Yeah, that was one thing that's important if you're going to start to get any number of cigars is to treat them properly.
Yeah.
Like you do not throw them in a Ziploc bag and fire them in the crisper.
Don't put them in the freezer. Francis bottle of propane and Tiger Torch. Damn near. I got one now downstairs if we need to. So, okay, well that's lit now. We'll see.
It does smell better though too.
It's
like the smoke.
Yeah, it's 100 times better. I don't pick up any hint of grain truck anymore.
Amazing how that changes for sure.
But I mean, if we're gonna have a cigar, we might as well have a drink. So this evening I got Leg of Yulin. It's an Islay single malt Scotch whiskey. It's an 8-year-old. Actually, Leg of Yulin's best known for their 16-year. But this is the 8-year, and this is kind of a special edition in celebration of their 200th anniversary. So
that's an interesting color. Is that
it's a very, very pale whiskey. It's in an off green bottle. So yeah, 8 years. Pretty interesting. So just the notes on the Leg of Yulin here. So the Leg of Yulin distillery is located on the south side of the Isle of Islay. I always call it Islay, but it's actually pronounced Islay. I realized that in my error here recently. And the distillery itself actually dates back from 1816. It was started by a guy named John Johnson and Archibald Campbell Brooks. They started 2 legal distilleries, and the records don't really show which one of those became Leg of Yulin, but somehow between the 2 of them, that one of them became Leg of Yulin over the time. Now, it was interesting because Leg of Yulin was started in 1816, but Lafroig, which we have a 10-year-old bottle of back there, was actually started the year prior. And there was all kinds of legal battles between the 2. But even though these are 2 of the oldest legal distilleries in Scotland.
Oh, wow.
But in fact, on the site that the Leg of Yulin distillery sits right now, there was like 10 records of like 10 illicit distilleries, like illegally distilling spirits back as far as 1742. And so what happened, the feud between Leg of Yulin and Lafroig is Peter Mackey, who was the distiller for Leg of Yulin, actually leased the distillery at Lafroig and tried to copy their recipe. So took that recipe back to the Leg of Yulin distillery, but the water was different, the peat was different, so the flavors came out significantly different. So it just didn't work out quite well. Anyway, so yeah, Leg of Yulin 8 was released in 2016, just as a celebration of their 200th anniversary of being an above board operation. So the tasting notes, the stuff I could find on the internet here, so it's supposed to, and we'll see we'll test this when we pour it, but the nose is supposed to be salted popcorn, honey roasted nuts, tarry ropes, not too sure about that, and light hints of freshly chopped cedar, a touch of burnt sugar, and sweetness lingers. Now on the palate, a smoky peat appears first on the palate, followed by coriander seed. I don't even know what coriander seed tastes like, but barley sugar, cumin powder, smoked kipper. You ever had a smoked kipper? They're not a good time.
What are they?
It's a fish.
Yeah,
it's like a little fish.
Yeah, tiny little fish.
Yeah. English people eat them for breakfast all the time. Okay. They're just terrible. And marzipan. Marzipan might actually be the saving grace for that. It's got a little bit of sweetness. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then the finish is supposed to be layers of apple crumble, toasted almond and ash, and then another kick of cooking spices right at the end. So that says a lot, right? That says an awful lot about a mouthful of whiskey.
It is amazing with cigars, with the whiskey, when you go to research the tasting notes, what they come up with. It's almost unbelievable. You're like, no, somebody just said all that. They didn't get that.
Well, I've wondered, and this is I have another line item on here, because I've often wondered, like, how much of this is just whiskey snobs just saying, oh, this tastes like freshly chopped almonds, when really it just tastes like pure gas.
I was going to say it tastes like exhaust.
So So I pulled a review right off the same Master Malt website from one person who bought a bottle, and there's lots of great reviews, but there's always one that's just gold, right? Just pure gold. And it was a 2-star review, and then I was like, oh shit, I already bought the bottle, but we'll see. He said, mix 2 parts Scotch, 1 part petrol, a pack of pepper, and then put it in a nice white box. So
he wasn't a fan.
So he was not a fan. Everybody else seemed to think it was a good time though. So
I can admit, you know, when you start to read through saying it's like, oh, it tastes like leather, and I don't often get that. I mean, the things don't taste atrocious, but I don't know if I could ever.
It's not offensive, but I mean, it's usually not like salted fruit cake.
Well, that's
you know,
just
like,
it.
I don't see that. Oh, Martien says Kent is listening in here with me. Well, that's good because it was his idea. That's why we're here tonight. So
interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'll uncork this puppy. Now that smells like Scotch, like real Scotch, like take cement off the sidewalk Scotch.
And that's amazing too. So those Dalmores, those redder ones, they're very sweet.
Very
this
sweet.
This
very
is a totally
fruity.
180.
Yeah. No, this smells like like
sour.
William Wallace and a tire fire, if I may.
Absolutely. I've got to spark this thing up here again. Oh, maybe I'll wait actually.
Yeah, I got talking mine went out. So you see, it's very pale. Oh, I spilled a drop.
Spilled a drop. I don't know if you're supposed to. So yeah, almost like.
So there's been a whole conversation around should we or
juice.
should we not have ice. This is not an ice one.
It's not
one for ice.
Did it say that?
Yeah. Usually the Isla whiskeys they'll tell you straight up like don't put ice in here. But it is one that it is acceptable to put a few drops of water in.
Okay.
If it's too much and you want to unlock some of the undertones.
Aged the same way, like it almost smells like that balcony aged in those.
Well, this is aged 8 years. Doesn't say on the bottle.
It does smell really good though.
Probably says on the box here. Of course, we're going to read the French too on the box. No, it doesn't actually say. It doesn't actually say. But I'm guessing it probably does not spend any time in Oloroso sherry casks. I can't imagine it would. American oak probably is exactly where it spends its 8 years. So.
Well, they say that's where it gets a lot of the color from.
Are you relit or no?
I didn't relight. I tried that, and that is very good.
We're gonna do this while the palate's clean. Very good.
Yeah, it is. It believe it or not, reminds me of like Cuban rum.
You know, this reminds me of in my parents' house, the cupboard underneath the stairs. There's always, you know, in the old house, there's always those unique kind of. It's funny how your scent stays, but like it's one of the most powerful memories. It can draw you back to something. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Interesting.
Not that I spent any amount of time there. I'm not a Harry Potter or anything like that, but.
That one is this is good. It's and it's actually relieving because we've had a few that were pretty similar. And this is
that is a man's whiskey
it
right
warms,
there.
It warms you up, which it's 30 degrees outside right now.
As it crosses the lips, there's definitely that, I should have put on chapstick. And then it starts at the tip of the tongue and races to the back. And it's like swallowing a cup of tea that you did not let cool. Like it's quite warm. It's quite warm.
Nothing is gonna chase that down and cool it off.
Chad says, I think I'd cut that stuff for the can of ginger ale. Well, you know what? I contemplated it when I read this thing about, 1 part petrol, the pack of pepper. I had contemplated it, but I was like, well, you know what? We're in it for the experience, right? That's what we're here for. No, it's more like disinfectant. That's what it is.
You think so?
It's like Dettol.
Dettol. That's yeah.
Yeah, you know that like comes in a brown bottle.
Yeah.
You need like 2 drops of it, and it turns milky white.
That might be exactly what it smells like. I've only been exposed to Dettol twice in my life. That should fix the throat, though, I would think. Fix the throat, clear the sinuses, because it is hot.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm excited about that. It's good whiskey. Get that in.
Good whiskey, good cigar. Up next, good
cigar
conversation.
It's time to quit hobby farming. So after Kent suggested this one, we polled the group, as was par for the course. There was, it was kind of a split decision, but this one I think was 43% of the vote in the end. So then begins the, do we really know anything about this subject? Because I mean, we're both pretty invested in our farms. I mean, there's days I have that are challenging. It sounds like you had a day today that was challenging, but really you second guess whether or not you made the right life choices. We started doing some research for some of this stuff and engaging some of the community. And that's what I find is so wonderful about what we do is the community side of things. But every once in a while, you'll see somebody having a rough day, right? And so as I'm looking through the old social media, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm going to go on my phone. I'm going to pull up this because I saw it on Facebook. One lady's post on one of the hobby farmers pages. She said, "Hey everyone, today is one of those days where I feel like I can't do this anymore. I've given all my strength and time, blood, sweat, and tears to this homestead, and every time I take a step forward, I take 10 back. Coyotes slaughtered our chickens and ducks, pig died suddenly, electric system died. I'm very frugal. I garden, I coupon, I reuse what I can, I eat at home only, do free events for homeschooling, save every penny I can. And I work over 60 hours a week on top of running this homestead. Today's the day that broke my spirit. I'm washing dishes and the pump broke on the well and it was leaking everywhere. I live in a small rural town. Everything costs high dollars for any service. It costed everything I had in savings and my budget for bills just to fix the well. My budget for groceries is gone. All of my bills are paid because we're almost completely self-sufficient as far as land bills and power, which is the goal, but I just feel defeated. The closest food bank is over an hour and a half away and is low on donations, so they're only open once a week. I work so hard to make sure there's always a rainy day backup, and the well broke me. I just want to give up. What do you do when you feel like you can't take it anymore? I just feel defeated and want to disappear. Sorry for the rant. I don't have many friends, especially that know this homestead work and struggle." And it's not too often I see a thing on social media that really like hits home. But I was like, man, that lady's genuinely having a rough day. And I think that completely encompasses some of the reasoning that we're going to talk about here this evening, right?
Yeah, that is tough, and unfortunately, when it comes, it seems to come in waves. So you need that.
So the problem is on the table. Now it's for us to solve. And we have 15 bottles of whiskey, 4 bottles of rum, and 4 jars of unlabeled homemade chemicals, which should help us solve that issue, I guess.
120 cigars.
120 cigars, yeah.
So we're ready to go in case we have to dedicate. Yeah, that is tough. That is tough to watch that people experience that. It's tough to hear about people experiencing that. But the reality about farming, and it's said about a lot of occupations, but if it was easy, everybody would do it. Homesteading, farming, hobby farming, any of that stuff. It's what separates it from anything else is that direct passion. That's what separates it from another job. A job you have to do because you need to pay your bills. Generally, homesteading, hobby farming, and farming, you expect a certain lifestyle out of that, and when it gives nothing back, and when you have days and or maybe if you're unfortunate enough to have a week or two stretch of bad luck, the wind is gone out of the sails.
I'm always curious to know what is that lifestyle? What is it that people? Because I mean, everybody has a different perception or a different expectation of what that lifestyle is. And to many, I think it's quite idyllic. It's quite low pace. You know, it's quite sunshine and butterflies and
Absolutely.
you know,
Any amount of hobby farming, homesteading, farming, as far as I'm concerned, it requires a certain amount of acreage. Now, you can't do this. I suppose in certain areas you can do it on a third of an acre if you're in really good areas. But generally, in our area and the people that we know, you're looking at least 80 acres plus,
yeah,
because we have such unforgiving weather, we have such unforgiving soil types. You can't
we have a lot of limiting factors.
you can't free range 110 head of cattle on even 160 acres up here, let alone 40 acres in upstate New York where the grass is 30 feet tall all year long.
Yeah, we've got 100 acres of pasture, and we have 35 cow-calf pairs that come every summer, and that is it. That is the most the land will sustain.
So we require that that certain amount of acreage, which is generally more, I would say, than most other areas that we look at when we see similar things being done. And with that, just comes that with back to the lifestyle. Just you have that openness where you're not going back home to the eighth story and going into a condo somewhere.
Yeah,
You're coming home, you're parking your car, you got room to spread your legs, you got room for the kids to run. That is the ideal situation. If very little else happens, if all you do is a little bit of gardening and 5 or 6 chickens, that is still the lifestyle. You have space.
yeah, yeah. If you could just get those goddamn chickens to pick their own eggs up and sweep their own coop out, I mean, we'd have it made, right?
Yeah.
I often see that it's like the Pinterest farm, right? Pinterest is a good place to go for ideas, but it's also a good place to see things that are less realistic. You know, any social media is good for that, but Pinterest is a really good way. Or if you're gonna look it up, you're gonna see pastel blue signs in the chicken house. You're gonna see a lady sitting there amongst the wildflowers, drinking a cup of coffee as the sun rises up behind her. In reality, I mean, you find a dead goat in the morning, and it's going to be a tough day. It's going to be, and that stuff happens, right? But yeah, so as with many of these subjects, when we initially start off the research, there's a certain amount of it that's original content, but we do have to research quite a bit. And as you do, you just go to Google and say, okay, what does the internet have to say about this as kind of the base. So I go into Google and I Google how to quit farming, and 33,800,000 search results came up.
Wow.
A lot, right? Now, almost all of them, with the exception of like maybe a half a dozen, were actually the opposite. They were how to quit a paid position, like quit your job in town and start farming, which was completely the opposite of what I was trying to discover on the internet. If you've ever heard of Joel Salatin, you can thank him for that, right? He's the one of the permaculture gods, right? The hobby farming gods. Get it, just plant, right? Just plant it. Just get chickens. You're going to solve the world. The world's going to be a better place if you just get chickens and plant potatoes. And it's a dream, but it's not necessarily reflective of the reality sometimes, right?
No.
So. But he's very upbeat about it, and he's very encouraging, and I don't want to take anything away from that. But yeah, 33,800,000, almost 34 million search results saying you should quit your job and go farming. And there's like 6 that say, nah, maybe you shouldn't. You should consider something else, right? So worldwide, the percentage of people that work in agriculture has actually dropped from 44% in 1991 down to 26% in 2020. So why is that? Well, I mean, there's obviously a significantly aging population farming. There's a greatly lessened desire to put in the work.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people that want to put in the work. There's also a lot of, we talk about the aging farming population. There's a lot of kids that just or even, second or third or fourth generation farmers that are just like, no, I'm set up. I got my job in town. I've got no interest in taking over the farm.
Mhm.
Right? They're career driven. They don't have that, as you said, passion for the land. Right? Now in 2020 through to 2022, in the last 2 years here, there was a slight uptick in total number of people working in agriculture, partially because people didn't really have a lot to do. So, okay, well, let's buy a goat, or let's get some chickens or whatever. And they still tick the box and say they're involved in agriculture, but I think a lot of people got in some pretty deep water, right? They got in above their heads. And now if you look at it, I mean, the whole Peace Area hobby farmers, North Peace hobby farmers, all those pages are just inundated every day with like, somebody please come and take this miniature donkey from me. Like, come, I got 6 goats to go today. I will deliver,
Yeah.
There's lots of that, right? So there's a lot of people I find that got into it at the beginning of the pandemic. They're now kind of coming back to the brochure, picking it up and saying, okay, I don't recall where it said this was going to be a thing. Just had a few comments there. So Chad says, I think a lot of people unfortunately start out with high expectations, not enough money to see it through. Get something go sideways and you watch your life savings disappear with no reward. Well, and that's one thing I don't think a lot of people expect, especially if you're moving out of town. Like, okay, well, take your water bill as an example. Water bill in town, say it's $50 a month. I don't even remember what our water bill was in town, but say it's $50 a month for eternity. That's a big cost. But you move out to a homestead and you go to drill a water well, that's $15,000 today before you even have a drop of water to surface. Right?
Yeah, and no guarantee.
And okay, well, your life expectancy on that well could be 30 years, it could be 3 years. And maybe you had this, right? Maybe it's a pressure switch, but maybe it's a downhole pump, and there goes another $1,000, right? So you got to, and I think we talked about this in a few other live streams too, where you just got to have that shoebox full of cash almost. Like, you got to amortize some stuff, have some contingency money set aside, because otherwise you're going to be looking at your bills and you're going to be looking at your goats and thinking, I wonder if goat goes well with ketchup, because it's the only way we're going to survive, right?
Well, and to Chad's point, I see that quite a bit on the like selling feed. People do move out to the farm instantly with unrealistic expectations. And the interesting thing, I've told some people this, I mean, I'm feeding the same pig, just somebody else is paying the bill.
Yeah.
It starts off on this farm and then that person moves and tries the pig and so on and so forth. I talk to a lot of people that are new getting into it, when they're looking around. Lots of times they get referred to come out and get feed from us. And generally we have pretty good chats with everybody that comes out. And unfortunately for some of the people, I just think like it's not going to work for you. Like you're thinking 60 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you got the 60 years to put in. One thing that's to me a little like a telltale thing are those that are like, well, I'd like to get a big bag, but I don't have a way to unload it.
Yeah.
And when I started this feed, whatever it was, 8 years ago, it was very small scale. I filled every bag with a bucket.
Yeah. Oh, you can get a 5-gallon bucket for free.
I would, people would want to mix. So I want 400 pounds of wheat, 400 pounds of peas, 400 pounds of barley. And I'd go to the bin door and I'd bucket it in there because the orders were a lot smaller then. And I'd see people come in and they'd say, well, we'd like to get a big bag, but we just don't have any way to unload it. And they'd have about 4 kids in the back seat, all of bucketing age, not to mention themselves. And I would say, look there's like 56 pails in this bag. I mean, that's like 5 pails each, 10 pails each, and you could be done. I said, I'll even give you another bag. You can offload it and fill it up in your shed or whatever, and life is good. You're going to save yourself whatever it was at that time. Unfortunately, with the grain prices so high, it's not a whole bunch different really than getting 50-pound bags and some stuff. But right off the bat, when people have that idea of like everything is too much work, like everything is going to be solved if I just get a skid steer, if I just get a grain bin, if I just get a $15,000 handling facility, if I just get, and maybe it's like you said, maybe they've watched too many Pinterest episodes or whatever. I don't know how Pinterest works, but maybe
it's just pictures, right?
Well, maybe they've seen too many pictures and they think like this is what I need to succeed. And with all of that stuff, all that ever does is take away the work. When you look at a farm, and it's fully established, all of that stuff was to take away the work. Like a lot can be done if you're willing to do the work.
Yeah, I mean, it's work deferral is really what it is, right? So if I want to get a $15,000 handling system so that I can cut down my inputs while I'm managing whatever piece of livestock, I have to go bust my ass for X amount of hours to pay for it somewhere. Somewhere that dollar's got to come from somewhere, right? So it might reduce the workload during a certain instance, but that dollar has to come from somewhere, right? It's kind of interesting. Fred just said we've had chickens that eat their own eggs, never pick them. Well, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, if you're in a tight spot and you can't feed your chickens in the summertime, they will forage for food and they will eat their own eggs, and they can weather an awful lot. But you're not going to get, they're not going to feed you. So then you put them in a soup pot, and then you got no chickens. So it's not really a great strategy, right?
No.
But short term, yeah, it can get you through there. RTN said they're driving through Saskatchewan right now. We see a lot of abandoned farmsteads. Each one of them would have had a story, and it would be incredible to know some of the stories behind some of those old homesteads. I know my grandmother on my mom's side, they had a homestead out in Martinsville by Saskatoon. And same thing, you drive by there now and it's like, it's just another story on the prairies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even up here in the Peace Country, there's, every dozen quarters or so, there's an old shack that there's a story that didn't work out well, right?
Well, I was asking my dad there a while back because, like you say, there's all these. Well, we noticed it when we were digging in the line for the house, the kind of the treasures you'd find as you dug through the dirt. And what was here? What was here? What was here?
A little archaeology, eh?
My dad's from here, so he. But like he said, even this stuff he doesn't really remember. But he said, yeah, with all the wire and the garbage and stuff around here, there must have been a yard site here as well. But where areas are tough, and then where they see tough times is where you see very little in the way of multi-generation establishment. So where you go into places like the Red River Valley, the better parts of Saskatchewan, you're going to see 120-year-old farms, effectively as old as the country.
Yeah.
Now you come up to here, I believe my grandpa got here in 1928, so we haven't quite been here 100 years, but that's why I had some of this written down as to why you're not seeing third and fourth and fifth generation farms up here. I mean, one of the biggest reasons is the West isn't even settled yet.
It's not even tamed.
Yeah. If you look around at somewhere like out in Ontario, across the St. Lawrence, if they needed a bridge, they just built one. There's bridge after bridge after bridge after bridge after bridge. Well, you come up to the Peace Country, and you might have to detour 50 kilometers or exponentially further to find the next bridge.
Try and cross the Peace River.
Right.
We do that, the Dunvegan Bridge, or are you going to do it by Bear Canyon?
That's the thing. So we have miles of gravel. Like we're so far from settled yet.
Oh yeah.
That next generation can't even be there. Now we are 100 years in. Mostly, there's quite a few farms getting 100-year farming awards. So there should be, you basically sum up a generation as about 40 years, basically in agriculture. And the next generation at that point should be assuming responsibility. So we could be well into the third. And you already here, you don't see a lot of that. It's gone after the third kind of has had enough. It's a tough.
It's interesting because like growing up in the UK, you look at some of those farms that have been established for quite literally 1,000 years. 1,000 1,000 years of agriculture, and there isn't a gravel road. It doesn't exist. You know, you might have a goat trail or something across the field, but there's no municipal road that's not paved, not one. It's unheard of.
And well, that's the interest. They say like even the rivers at the important parts, they're lined with rocks because every day somebody threw a rock in there.
Yeah,
and over 1,000 years, it's actually a gravel lined river or gravel line.
There's fords across the river where you can crossing points where, because it wasn't feasible to go 20 miles up to the Brandywine Bridge and catch the ferry and go across, right? Like you just needed to cross. They'd have a ford every 6 miles, right? So
yeah, well, we're far from that here,
right? So yeah. But yeah, I don't know how many reasons you pulled, but I pulled 7 specific reasons why you should quit hobby farming.
Yeah, well, when I really started this, I'll shout out my 5 right quick here. I got to thinking right away more of I guess a larger farm, but I mean they'd parallel themselves. So I had 5 reasons why do we want to sell our farms? We either get old, we get sick, the next generation has no interest, we may have to relocate for work or any other reason, or we just lose our passion.
Yeah.
Those were the 5 reasons where I thought, well, these are probably fair enough reasons to get rid of the farm.
Yeah. Yeah, I got, not too far off of that. I said, when you're underutilizing your resources, it's time to go pro kind of thing. When the farm becomes misaligned with your passion, it's just, it's not what you thought it was going to be. When the farm's future is uncertain, and that can be financial, that can be, part of the bigger picture. Or when you're considerably undercompensated, again, that's more of a financial thing. When you're unable to fulfill your duties, that could be a sickness thing, that could be a work thing, it could be moving away, right? When you require a better work-life balance, and that's one thing that we definitely see, the lifestyle side of things is thinking, okay, well, life is going to be fairly relaxed out in the country versus out in town.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not, right? Maybe you're going to work an extra 7 hours today, right? And then the last one I have is when you rarely enjoy it anymore. When it becomes a source of stress as opposed to a source of joy in your life, right? So.
And certainly, I mean, with the exception of getting sick or getting old, these, or I suppose even relocating, there are a tremendous amount of days on the farm. I know, talking to my mom, talking to my dad, who have effectively farmed since they got married, and my dad's farmed his whole life. There have been a lot of days where that man has lost passion.
Yeah.
Does that mean you got to sell right away? Probably not.
Well, no, and I think you have to weigh yourself a little bit, right? Or temper yourself a bit. There's going to be occurrences, there's going to be incidents, there's going to be events that will gnaw away at you. There's going to be impactful days. But if tomorrow's still good or next week is still good, maybe it's worthwhile hanging on to it.
Knee-jerk reactions in agriculture are not going to fare well.
No, exactly. Well, and anywhere in life they won't, right?
Well, with the exception of land ownership, you almost can guarantee yourself you won't get that back. Now, it's not to say you might not be able to, down the road, find another patch of ground somewhere else and give this another try.
Sure.
But statistically, through history, the odds of you getting a piece of ground back that you've let go, turned away, are very rare. Now,
what was that song? Daddy Won't Sell the Farm? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
There's some deep-seated logic behind that.
Absolutely.
It's more than just pride.
Absolutely. Now, recently, with the ease of borrowing money and things we've basically seen in the last decade, we've noticed things turn over more rapidly. I mean, I've seen the same acreage listed 3 or 4 times. I've seen the same quarter of land listed 2 or 3 times. That is a rarity, though. You can't if you've seen this, you can't get it in your head now to say if I get one more bad day, I'll just throw in the towel and start over somewhere else, or come back to this.
Why is that? Like, I can see that with the acreage. I can definitely get there with the acreage. Somebody moves out of town, they buy an acreage, they think they're living the dream. Suddenly they read the brochure. It's not sunshine and teddy bears anymore. Sorry, I shouldn't have put that so far away.
That's fine. This tricky. This
Yeah, mine's gone out twice now. If you're not staying on it. But so then, okay, when they realize that it's not as amazing and all they do is come home from work and mow the goddamn grass, I can see why after 3-4 years they're just like, man, we just got to get out of here and just get 100 by 150 lot in town with the same size house, and then it takes us an hour to mow the lawn, and then the rest of the week we can take the kids to hockey practice or do whatever, kick back and relax, right? Have some better work-life balance. I can see why people get there with the acreage. With the quarter of land, I often question, like, why did those turn over here in the last 5 years? Like, why are you seeing that?
Well, ones that I know of, generally they're estates. So one thing that happens in agriculture quite a bit is the preceding generation, if they're, say, I find it quite a bit when I talk to people, it's the second generation. They hold on too long. And I don't know why. My dad and I talk about this quite a bit. I guess he was very willing to pull right back. He was very willing to retire at 65. He wanted the next generation, if they were at all to show interest, pony up financially, help out, be there. Yeah. He wanted to pull back. He doesn't mind riding around in the equipment. He doesn't want to make any decisions on anything. Yeah. He'll offer his opinion. Sure. That's the extent of it. I mean, I made that funny TikTok. I don't know if anybody follows me on that. Just recently, he had told me in May, he said, you better sell that wheat. We've never seen wheat this high. Yeah, $17 wheat. This old guy, like, what are you talking about? Right? Wow. He's like Warren Buffett talking about Bitcoin, right? He was right. He was right. So by the time I got excited about selling it, had already lost basically $3. And but being a good sport, I mean, he helped me load it, and he never he just said salt in the wound. No, he said we've never seen it this high, and he said I'll be 70 here soon. I've never seen it this volatile either, never. So what are we gonna do, right? I mean, it's still a good enough price. Well, I mean, all you can ever do though is make the best decision you can with the information that's available to you at the time. Yes. And I mean, if you're looking at a trend that's going like this, nobody expects it suddenly to just get a kink in the neck and just go like that. Well, this will be just a slight little tangent here. Anybody seen that Big Short movie where he's all movie long? He's convincing companies to sell him whatever they call them against the housing market. Yeah. And he keeps writing on his whiteboard. And he's like negative 300 billion, negative whatever. And then by the end of the movie, he locks out all his investors and says, "This is fraud by the U.S. government. I don't believe what you're seeing, and I've taken control of the fund, and you can't trade anymore." Mm-hmm. And by the end of the movie, he's up like 1 point whatever, which is Mike Burberry or whatever. Yeah. I believe that's actually what's happening with food production right now. I really do. I'm not a far right Looney Tune. No, me neither. But you're not wrong. And the reason I say this, the USDA and StatsCan, they continually put out crop reports. I was spraying for the neighbor the other day whose son is southeast Saskatchewan, southwestern Manitoba. He said there's oodles of ground not seeded. Oodles. Not seeded why? Not seeded. It's too wet. It's too wet, eh? They can't seed it. I watch a couple of bigger farms in the United States. They're already planning on working back their winter wheat crop. It didn't even grow. Right? Their wheat crop looks better than their winter wheat crop, but they know it'll get to harvest, hopefully, if we have no other further impediments coming at us. Their peas, short and flowering. Tennessee is in a drought. Like there's that whole area down there, Texas, Oklahoma. Now there's always patches where things are good. Yeah, sure. But when you start to read these articles, and the article is just nonsense, so I usually stop halfway through the article and I just read the comments, and people say, just to get perspective, this guy never even drove through Minnesota, or he never, like, this article is crazy. You know, it was written by somebody sitting on the 72nd floor in a trading stocks in San Francisco.
Sure.
It's totally out of touch with the reality of what's happening. Now, if you were to look into the peace country right now, you could say we are probably setting up for good to excellent.
Absolutely.
I expect, and from the people that I've talked to, fertilizer inputs were so expensive that across the board everybody cut back.
Yeah, they'd be
So
low if not non-existent.
we can expect a lower yield. However, if we continue to get a rain, 3 or 4 or 5 tenths of rain every 3 or 4
And
days,
this
you
warmth and
almost don't need, that's going to be irrelevant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We are seeing some things in some of our canola fields that are like, yeah, I guess Bayer came out recently and admitted there was a problem with some of the seed, which
really?
unfortunately the bloom seeded. So
Sure. Yeah.
but that being said, some of it looks great as well. So I don't know what's going to happen. I do think by and large, as a whole, there's a bit of smoke and mirrors right now. I don't know if it's correction to correct against inflation because things were high, but when you start to see grain lose 3, 4, 5, 6, and upwards of $7 a bushel, like canola did, basically in 2 weeks, off of a report, or the, you know, the
well, the market's never really controlled by the actual market. The market is controlled by investors' comfort level, right? And so somebody releases a report, and it just gets everybody, all the hairs on the back of their neck stand on end.
Mm-hmm.
And what do? Sell, 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 sell.
Yeah.
What does the market do when you sell? So it's kind of like forced manipulation, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that's okay. So what's the reasoning behind that? I have to kind of, so if you can force the market to dip, there's got to be, you know, I wouldn't say necessarily somebody out there with a nefarious mission, but there's got to be a reasoning for it as to why they do that. But to the end user, you know, the people that are the hobby farmers, what does that look like? Well, maybe don't have a llama. Maybe you need to have sheep or a goat or something that you can. If it hits the fan, are you going to eat your llama?
Well, that's for the dog,
right?
You'd be better off eating the dog.
So I mean, I'm not too far in the Looney Tune category either, but I always kind of keep that in the back of my mind, is that everything that we have on the farm has to either generate revenue or be edible. Everything. So
yeah, that's another thing, and I think it was somewhere here, and we had talked about it in another live stream too. If you're going to be doing all this stuff and effectively making a funny farm, unless you're fabulously wealthy with a source of income from somewhere else, that's going to eat off the table all the time.
All the time, yeah.
In order to really do this, you have to attack this sensibly, where you have to do what works. You know, for instance, this year I grew 5 acres of sunflowers. I mean, my dad tried sunflowers in the 80s and it didn't work. So that's a novelty that we're doing on the farm, but I didn't try a whole quarter because
you dip your toes in the water, right?
It's not going to work. Like, I don't even know if the market exists up here to get rid of a whole quarter of sunflowers. Now with trucking, logistically, we can get it to where it needs to be.
You got to find a way to harvest it. You got to find a way to store it. You got to find a way to market it.
But this is something that you can't, like you say, there's nothing you can really do with it. Now, for me, with these 7 acres, my plan was to basically bag it up for chicken feed. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great for that.
But back to your buying exotic animals, like who really should be that excited about getting a zebra in the peace country?
You must have seen the Facebook post I put up. Like, I couldn't believe that there was 2 people that I screenshotted. One was, you know, they just recently purchased a hobby farm. They got chickens and ducks, and we're just wondering, like, okay, well, what else would be reasonable to get on their hobby farm? And most people said get a goat or get a sheep, or again, something that you could milk, you could eat, you could somehow exploit to get some kind of usable either revenue stream or something edible out of. And then there was this other lady that was like, oh, we're having an exotic livestock sale in my area. I need to convince my husband that we need a zebra. What are you ever going to do with that other than just give it money out of your wallet. Like, it's never going to add any kind of value. It's going to have massive, massive vet bills. It's probably pretty unethical to even keep it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a wild zoo animal. But I mean, there's folks in the States that they can own tigers and all kinds of stuff, right? So
Absolutely.
but yeah, no, I kind of thought about that too. You know, that considerably undercompensated thing. You know, there's a lot of folks in the hobby farm business that have alternate sources of disposable income. Maybe they work off farm. Maybe they don't take a bunch of holidays. Maybe they don't buy new cars all the time. But they can invest a significant amount of money in their hobby farm, and suddenly one day, if that disposable income is gone, well, what happens? You know, things are going to get real tough. And if you're looking at your kids and you're looking at your ducks, that shouldn't be a hard choice to make.
No.
You know,
those extras and those intricities, when you're having a bad day and you look out the window and you see a pen of something that's totally useless, that adds exponentially to the burn that you're feeling. It does, in those dark moments, it does not bring you joy. When people think, oh, I'm going to go cuddle my whatever.
I'll be transparent and say, because it was a feed shortage last year, right? A significantly harsh feed shortage hit the Peace Country. And I was on a mission to make sure we did not waste a lick of feed. That meant everything got fork fed. Brown bale was parked outside the field. I forked it across the fence. And at 5:15 every morning, forking horses that hay made me real bitter, really bitter. Because it was like, man, like we can't hook a harness to you. You're not going to plow a field. I don't even like riding you because I'm just going to go up in the side by side. I'm not going to spend 45 minutes to saddle you up, do the groundwork,
just to have you
rush you all out. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. They serve no purpose to me. I know to some people they obviously do, and to my wife they do, and we have differing opinions on that. But yeah, real bitter about this thing that doesn't contribute anything to the personal wealth of the family, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that goes the same for equipment and things too, right? When you're sitting there thinking like, oh, if only I had a $28,000 John Deere mower tractor with a rototiller to get this work done, I'd be a happy farmer. And then your garden freezes out in August, and
you're making payments on a machine that
you look out the window and it's raining, and you got this cabless thing that's not really good enough for anything big and kind of too big for anything small. It's kind of just an annoying piece of infrastructure that's sucking off the table.
Yeah, you'd have been better off to buy a 1948 McCormick 3-point hitch on it.
But lots of people, they tell me like, oh, if only I had this, if only I, this would make it better. And I think only if it all goes right. And in agriculture, very rarely does it all go right. It is a very long game.
It is a long game, and that's why those multi-generational farms are successful. Is because somebody's already put the sweat equity into it, right? You're getting let's be honest, a lot of multi-generational farms, second generation and down, have been handed things on, not necessarily a silver platter, but they've had things a lot easier than if they've had to do it off their own.
That's undeniable. And even on the more extreme cases where the next generation did have to buy it outright, if you were financed through the prior generation, that's different than financing through the bank. 100%. It's the whole Donald Trump story where he only
a small loan of $1 million from my dad.
In a time when people were making like $40,000 a year, as it was a good job.
Yeah.
And to borrow $1 million from the bank would have probably been unheard of for the average person.
Not feasible.
And this person borrowed it from his dad. So,
yeah.
I mean, they can say what they want, but you can imagine it was basically an over the kitchen table. Like you didn't have that's stacks and stacks of bankers and lawyers and sign. Maybe they did. I don't know. They are business people. But I expect probably wasn't the case.
Probably here's a silver spoon. feed off of it, right? Martine says, Kent just said, food for thought, after the off-farm job is no longer, how long does the hobby survive? Well, and that's the thing is, I mean, in context, after the off-farm job is gone, you're no longer in hobby mode. You are in survival mode. There's got to be a time where, and everybody has to think of this, whether they live in town or they live rural. If tomorrow my job ended, what is my buffer? What does my contingency look like? How long can I weather that storm? And if I'm going to the co-op every second or third day to buy groceries, which we all know are very, very expensive, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough right now. And it's going to whittle away any savings you have, literally just to stay alive. You know? So a lot of people don't put that, even the folks in town, they say, oh, well, I don't have to I don't have to plant a garden. I can just go to the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you should just think about what you just said, right? Think about work-life balance. Think about, okay, every time you go to the grocery store and you spend $70, that's how many hours of your day that you had to spend going to work. So if you traded that for a couple hours in your garden, would you be able to recoup that and not have to go to work for so much time? And I've done the math on that, and I know because we very rarely have to go to the grocery store. We don't buy meat. We don't buy vegetables during the summer.
Yeah.
You know, we're able to can quite a bit of stuff in the fall versus the families that have to go there. Like I say, like every few days, go to the grocery store. It's worth it.
It is mind-boggling when you actually do any sort of numbers on food or stand and look into a stand-up freezer or a chest freezer in your house, especially on, you know, in the last few months here where things really ballooned. I mean, you can easily look at a stand-up freezer, like a full-size stand-up freezer. I mean, there could be, by grocery store price, it would be $7,000 worth of food in there.
Yeah, well, our stand-up freezer right now has a whole pig, 20 chickens, and probably about an eighth of a beef in it.
You feel just rich.
There's almost a year's worth of food in one stand-up freezer. We have 2 chest freezers and 1 stand-up freezer. You know, and in all total, all of that food, aside from my time, if I was just to think of the feed cost itself, probably cost me about $1,500. The average food bill, if you were to buy from the grocery store this year, $16,500 for a family of 4 to eat at a grocery store. I can put it in the freezer for $1,500. So I mean, we're going on a tangent here. We're talking. Well, now there's a pretty good reason to stick with the hobby farm.
Well, yeah, and not really, because I was going to say that's, you know, we started on this little tangent here with what do you do once your off farm job is no longer. I get a little bit, I don't know, maybe a little bit petty towards the people that kind of attack this as a game, this hobby farming, homesteading farming thing. It deserves to be taken seriously right off of the start. As soon as you commit to doing this, it needs to be taken seriously. The infrastructure needs to be built. There's got to be some animals if that's what the route you're going to go down. Some infrastructure for them if you're going to do vegetables. There's got to be a garden, and it's got to be maintained, and this has to be a real process, because right away then you're going to see a return on investment.
Big time. Yeah.
Whereas if you attack this as a game and like every weekend, you know, you got to do something else, so you never get the garden planted, and you never do this and you never do that, your time there will be certainly a lot shorter.
Well, there is that. Yeah, I mean, if you own a boat, you probably shouldn't own a hobby farm.
Yeah. Because
you have to decide what is my leisure. And I mean, there's probably some boat owners on here that are going to jump all over that one, but
well, I can as a past boat owner say that it does not work.
No, it's the horse of the leisure world. I'm going to buy this thing and it costs all this money and it doesn't generate any revenue. And every time I want to fill it up, it's $500.
I bought my boat in 2007, I believe, and I sold it in about 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
And it had 147 hours on it. And I didn't use it all the time. Sometimes some other people took it out. I know one year when we got right serious into spending all our time at the farm, we had started our plan to move out there. We were still living in town. The one year we didn't take it out of the garage.
Yeah.
And the one year we took it out of the garage for 15 minutes. We went out to Swan Lake. We went around the lake. It started to rain. We loaded it up. We brought it back. There just was no time. On the nice days,
Yeah.
you got things to do. Our farm, not knocking it, but there was a tremendous amount of aged infrastructure,
Sure.
40-year-old everything.
Yeah.
Had to be ripped down or restored or repaired or whatever.
Absolutely.
We're still working at that today, but we've gone pretty far with it. And every day, there's something to do.
Oh, there's never a shortage.
And if you don't put that at the top of the list and get out there and get this happening right away, it's never going to offer you the return that may save your bacon or keep you going if that off-farm job is to disappear.
Yeah. Well, I kind of made mention of this during our last live stream. My reference to the Three Little Pigs, right? If you want to sing and play all day, well, the wolf's going to come blow your house down. If you actually put in the effort and you build something strong and something sustainable, suddenly your bacon, literally, quite no pun intended, but your bacon will be saved, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it doesn't take a lot either to develop, say, a client list of annual clients who want a half of something.
Yeah.
It really doesn't take that much. We talked about this once too on a live stream that all you got to really do is if you want more than the store, which kind of this last year has been a real conundrum of if you can sell farm raised produce for less than the store. You always could before, but now that the price of feed and everything skyrocketed, the price of grain skyrocketed.
It's a little less sustainable.
The hay shortage crippled the area.
That really,
when people were asking $300 plus a ton.
Yeah. That tested a lot of people.
The farmers needed the extra money for their animals, so they had to raise it up too. Now in the in regards to beef at the store is basically $7 to $20 a pound on the rail.
Yeah.
Well, there are still producers willing to sell you for like $4.50 on the rail.
Sure they will.
So
which you can buy hamburger in the grocery store for that.
And
well, not even.
No, the hamburger I believe is about $7 a pound on the rail. It's yeah. I shouldn't say because I haven't looked because we don't buy it either, right? We have our own. But that extra buck should be the easiest sale you have to make. So if you're looking to find a way to cash flow your hobby farm, five steers and 7 pigs, we should know that many people. It shouldn't be that hard to make a client list of annual customers.
Well, and I think that's why, as I mentioned at the beginning, okay, there was an uptick in the community at the beginning of the pandemic, and now we're seeing that start to wane off. Because let's be honest, everybody watched the biggest little farm on Netflix and thought, okay, well, let's blow our brains out, let's mortgage ourselves to the hilt, and we're going to get all these ducks and chickens and a goat and a milk cow, and it's not financially sustainable at all.
No.
And so they kind of flooded the market. And the community, okay, well, if there's 10 people in a community of 1,000 have that small farm, it's very, very easy to do that. But if there's 100 people in a community of 1,000, suddenly it's not easy to do that. Right? So now you need to build, beyond just saying, okay, well, I have farm fresh eggs for sale, or I have organic pork, or whatever it is you're marketing. Now you have to build personal relationships with people. In human history, in the last 2 years, I think would be a really good example in the last 2 years where it was very, very difficult to build personal relationships with people.
Yeah.
So it stands to reason why a lot of the hobby farms they just haven't been able to make a go of it. Right?
No.
the dream became kind of a nightmare, right? So the other thing too, I mean, we had a couple comments in here, and I think it's relevant. You know, Kristen said, you know, my other half is the same way with the horses, but I do all the work with them, so not sure what he has against them. So spousal support is a huge piece of this, right?
Oh yes.
You know, and it's not always about the work, but men and women think very, very differently. Women will typically think about how they feel. They'll think about from an emotional level, whereas men think more from a physical or logical perspective, right? And so neither one of those is right or wrong, but they're just two very different ways of thinking. And so the man's going to think, well, how does this contribute value from a numbers perspective? Mathematically, how does this make sense? Whereas typically the women will think, well, how does this make me feel? How does this bring joy? And there's that passion side of it that, I mean, we talked about at the beginning, right? That there's a significant value, but less tangible value there, right? You can't really attach a number to it. So when you're having those conversations with your spouse, you really need to communicate, right? And if your idea is, I want to go to this exotic livestock sale and come home with a zebra, you do need to convince your husband that you need this, right? If you're having that argument, if you're having that conversation, you got to think about how you frame that. And then after that, if you do convince your spouse to engage in that, buy that zebra, buy that alpaca, buy that goat, whatever, 50 chickens, whatever it is, then you got to put in the work. You actually got to do it. You actually got to make revenue. You actually have to say, okay, make the dream a reality and not just kind of a Pinterest thing, right? Some people are really, really good at that. And some people are not, right? So if your spouse doesn't support you, the hobby's going to die a slow death, and it's going to do nothing but build resentment in your relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fred said some people watch too many YouTube videos without knowing how to work. And maybe that's, I don't know if that's, necessarily a point of pride for either one of us, but something I think we both try to do is to show the work. I come from a generation where you couldn't do math homework unless you showed your work. You couldn't just have a number on the page. and I find that there's a lot of that in the YouTube community where they show the results and they show all the good stuff, but they don't really show the consequence. They don't show the frozen waters. They don't show them getting electrocuted by the waters. They don't show the sprayers that are buried in 4 feet of mud, which there's probably a story to tell there. But
that's funny. I got so much graph for that. That was like, that was a picture on my phone. That was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What kind of amazed me was, like, so it was a pea crop, but it was an advanced pea crop. There was pods on the peas. So anyone, and it's kind of one thing that drives me crazy. Why are we all like, everything's like a car crash? We stare at it. Like, we want to see.
Well, you can't look away.
But I mean, if you would have looked at the picture, and I got so much flack for clickbait, and I guess that's effectively what it was, but it was really the only picture I had on my spray, and I was spraying. So I put it on there, and I got some flack for that because I had made a funny TikTok about it too.
Well,
I thought
I clicked on it too. I thought, we did get quite a bit of rain. Maybe you did bury it. But.
No, it didn't happen. It didn't happen this year. It happened like 3 years ago. But yeah, like say, had anybody actually paid attention to the picture, you would have been like, that's not this year, because that crop that's like in August.
It's well advanced.
Right, it's an end of August crop, not a terrible one at that.
Yeah.
But
I never even thought about that because I look outside and I see the grass. I went out to our pasture the other day where I just moved the sheep, and on the east side of the pasture, the grass is 5.5 feet tall. I could sit in the side by side, and it would almost be at the roof line of the side by side.
Like film Jurassic Park down there.
So I mean, it's possible, right? So I never even caught it. I didn't even realize it was a thing.
I will say we should have went with Romeo and Juliet's.
That's a lot. Hey, what are we into it?
I don't think I'm halfway.
We're a third. We're a third in.
Christ.
The flavor's changed though. It's not as peppery anymore.
You don't think so? I was going to
I
say
don't. I'm
it's
not
more
getting the pepper.
spicy now.
Well, and I think we experienced this last time too, is where we had the same cigar, but they smoked differently. And you got spice when I didn't get spice, and I ended up getting spice right at the end. But either way, we could say we'll have to agree on this. We'll have to shake hands and say that both of us are going to be highly congested tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
What do we got for comments here? So Fred said that the last time he was in Walmart, the ground beef was $6.49 a pound. Yeah, and I can just imagine what some prime cuts would be. 40, $50 a pound easily. Chad said a guy has to start looking beyond production on land as land values increase. Have to look at sustainable value added, especially when adding family members. Yeah, you know what? That's a challenge we had this year with a new baby, another mouth to feed, and we're okay. Well, new mouth to feed, but that means that labor that goes into it, we aren't going to be able to recoup that labor for probably 10 years, right? When the kids can really start to help out in such a way that they're not just kind of underfoot.
Yeah.
When you can actually turn them loose, maybe not on a piece of machinery, but with a task, and they can take some responsibility. So there's deferred revenue there as well that you have to think about, right? Rod English. Hey, I don't know if he's been on one of our live streams.
Well, Rod showed up.
That's pretty awesome.
Rod's getting involved with the. He made a post on the Peace Country Food Connection too.
Oh, that's good.
So,
yeah. So he said most consumers don't want to buy more than a couple days worth of food, and most don't have enough storage for more than a week's worth of food, and would rather spend that money on something fun. And I mean, you and I have talked extensively on this subject about consumer habits. And it's crazy to think that you could have a fridge that's this big, fill it right up, and throw half of it away. And what's the logic there? I don't know.
Well, I don't know if you've seen it. I just. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I said that too could be one reason for the death of the hobby farm is because we're all trying to sell somebody that whole or half animal, and the market can't always bear it. And so there has to be, again, when you're building those personal relationships, conversations like we're having now, and we've had in previous live streams about value. We as producers all need to have that with our customer base and explain to them, okay, I'm going to sell you this beef, and it's going to be $800 or $900 cheaper than it is if you buy all of these individual cuts in the grocery store. And not only will that pay for your freezer, but it's also going to pay for you to power it for the entire year until that, basically in perpetuity, until that meat becomes freezer burned. The individual consumer does not know that. They can't comprehend that.
No, and I wonder why. And I mean, I guess if you have an idea on to why it is, throw it out there. But so when I did that funny TikTok about selling the wheat for $3 less than my dad had told me to sell it for, I had also done a YouTube video on how much a farmer could make at the 3 stages of selling a crop. Yeah. And I had one comment on there, on one of them, that said, why do you keep torturing yourself? Because I'm a victim of it too. I mean, I didn't hit the highs in the market and everything else like that either.
No, sure.
I really believe it's a learning thing. And the more I expose myself to it, I believe the smarter I'm going to be. And I brought this up in regards to meat. So we had a nice dinner on the 27th. 3 days ago, and I was looking at the table, and I actually asked my wife. I said, "What, because what was this worth?" I mean, it was like, by grocery store prices, it was probably a $300 meal.
Really?
It cost us effectively nothing. I mean, we had T-bone steaks, and we had mashed potatoes, and we had this, we had that, but it was all our own stuff.
Yeah.
So it cost us whatever. I think I paid about $1,000 a steer, whatever it costs to feed them, whatever it costs for the butcher. It's very cheap, anyways. Yeah. Plus, it's offset by the few that we do sell to friends and family. So it's a very cheap meal. And knowing the numbers all of the time, I think really helps. And I wonder, why does the urban consumer not care at all? to know, because I had made a post and I said, like, geez, with the increase in the grocery store, I really thought this page would have had more traffic. Like nobody's even producers and consumers alike, or and nobody cares.
Yeah.
And I mean, I gained nothing from it. It's just part of a.
But they're apathetic towards it, right? It seems like it's still easy. It's really easy to get up at 6 a.m. and go to some shitty job and work 10 hours or 12 hours or whatever, however many hours, come home and just rinse repeat. And they don't think, okay, well, maybe I'll really only need to work 8 hours if I just did a little bit of work for myself.
But these are the same people that, like you say, will bulk buy and then throw half to 3/4 of it away and complain about the cost of everything, where they won't spend. Doesn't seem that they want to spend a minute on making a plan to do something different.
And it's by so it's by no comparison to your $300 meal at all, because you can't touch that. We generally don't eat T-bones very often, but anyways, spinach. You go to Costco, you buy a bag of spinach. I don't even know what it costs because we haven't bought one forever, but I know they're not cheap. And you're buying spinach out of California in December. It's probably not that great either. Chances are it's going to be recalled for E. coli. But okay, so for the cost of that bag of spinach, I can go to PV Mart in March and I can buy enough spinach seeds, plant them, and within 45 days I can be harvesting spinach every single day. And we've been doing this for a week now. We're having spinach salad every single day, nutrient dense, sunshine right off the farm. It's literally 7 steps from the house. Boom, boom, boom. As much spinach as we can possibly eat all year long, or wherever the season allows, and we'll freeze a whole bunch in the fall for the cost of 1 bag of spinach that I would go bad before I ate a third of it, and I'd throw the rest of it away.
Mm-hmm. Or as you said, be recalled before you get.
Or be recalled because I got dysentery from it. You know.
I'm nursing it. Well, and quite a bit of this of what we just say. That's if that ties into the loss of passion. If you're out on your hobby farm, this topic was the when, the why, and the how of getting out of farming. If effectively nothing that we just said in that last 15-20 minutes, if you're not doing any of that stuff, if that doesn't interest you, then I would be confused and would wonder, why did you start this at all?
Well, I mean, most people want to get into growing their own food because there is always that allure of, I'm going to save so much money. I seen a thing there the other day. Okay, well, I'm going to build a $3,000 chicken coop so I can get my eggs for free. That's always kind of the running joke.
Yeah.
But the reality is it doesn't have to be that way.
No.
Right?
No,
I think you've got the same setup we have. There's an old grain bin that was converted, and you make it work.
We just recently plucked the last wooden grain bin on the property out of the lineup, and made our second.
A second, so you're expanding your chicken operation.
Yeah, well, our plan. Well, here you go. Our plan was to expand, although we didn't do the research. And when we moved the original chicken coop, we moved it during the day when all the chickens were out frolicking.
Oh, you haven't watched any of my videos.
And then, we come up at night and we're like,
they're all lost.
They're all in the bush.
They're all idiots. Yeah,
so we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off, trying to catch these chickens.
Vagrant chickens that don't know where to go.
Not giving them any time to calm down or roost in the bush or anything. And, and then get frustrated with each other. Like either one of us was supposed to know that.
Yeah.
Go back to the house mad, come back the next day and half the chicken flock is in piles of feathers. Very happy fox or coyote or whatever, really? Or chicken hawk. So we, anyways, we have a setup for another one to expand, but we have half the chickens. So,
well, that's interesting. We should dive into that one, the fox. And I apologize if the wound is still too fresh for you to discuss this one, but when you talk about killing your passion, you know, the lady that I referenced in the Facebook post at the beginning of the video talked about coyotes got her ducks and her chickens. I see this quite often. There'd be a post saying coyote or a fox or a weasel, whatever the predator is, got all my chickens. I need more chickens. Maybe you need to figure out first. Just breathe, pause, figure out the solution to that problem, understand the root cause of it, address it, and then seek out having additional chickens or additional livestock, whatever it is. There's a few people I know that have habitually, you know, sunk their own ships repeatedly. They have a fox issue. Okay, well, they eats all my turkeys. Well, then they get more ducks or they get more chickens or more turkeys or whatever. And 7 days later, that fox is just like, it's like a 150-pound fox. It's just an all-you-can-eat buffet. It's like going to Mama Panda's, like $24.99, all you can eat all day long. Well, maybe you just need to figure out what's going on there.
Get yourself an old Englishman groundskeeper.
Maybe you need to buy a wax jacket and just take care of business. Do some 30 caliber therapy, or maybe you need to secure your coop better or your pens better or whatever it is. I mean, last year we invested $1,000 in fencing around our sheep pen, so we didn't lose anything to predators. And there's a bit of heartburn on that cost, but a significantly lower amount of heartburn than there would be if I come out there and there was 7 dead lambs or 40 dead chickens.
Mm-hmm.
And I just talked to a guy the other day. Actually, he was here to do some work on the pipeline, and he said, "Yeah, you know, we had a fox come in, 40 chickens, just killed them all. Just killed, like, doesn't even eat one, just kills them out of spite because they just got that." Well, why would you just get 40 more chickens for that fox to come in and play that game again, right? You have to manage that, because otherwise that will ultimately become, you know, a destroyer of passion. It's going to be one of those things that just leads you to become so defeated and so, like, it doesn't make you happy anymore, right?
Well, I will say, and I mean, I had it written here. I was just kind of reading through some of these notes that we keep to be able to remember what we wanted to say. As someone who, up until basically 3 years ago, I wasn't familiar with livestock, and we hadn't, up until this year, really had any losses. I mean, we had our 10 pigs, they all made it to butcher. We had our 2 steers the first year, 4 the next.
Yeah.
Well, then I thought, well, I mean, I'm flying high. Sure. Everything was good. The first year we kept the meat for ourselves. It was really good. The next year we shared it with some people. They really, really liked it. And I thought, well, this is easy.
Sure.
Right? I mean, I've done this 2 times back to back. Obviously, I'm an expert. Then we bought 10 steers and 2 died within the first 2 weeks. And I was just, I even told Corey, I said, I don't even want to do this again.
Yeah.
Like, this is garbage.
Yeah.
Because this wasn't even supposed to be a high risk endeavor when you buy 500-600 pound weight animals that are already weaned. Like, how is this happening?
That should be a simple one. You acquire it for this cost, you put this much cost in, you sell for this much. It should be a simple mathematical equation.
But that livestock, dead stock thing, that will eat your lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked up.
And so out of your control sometimes.
Well, I've some people say, oh, it's no different than a farmer losing a crop. Well, I've worked up grain crops in July that aren't going to make it. And we don't even carry insurance. So that's just a financial kick in the face. But it was nothing like dragging a dead animal out of the bush and wondering what you did. I guess when it comes to the rain or the grain crops, or, the weather was what did that.
Well, and there's less of correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a grain farmer. I don't know this, but I'm just assuming, I guess. There's not as much of an emotional attachment to a crop.
Oh, absolutely not.
If you go to disc something under and just, I guess we're going to start again, that's one thing. But when there's, I mean, you were these, I guess you're solely responsible for the life of that animal. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, a little bit more.
So when that animal doesn't survive, what can you do but blame yourself?
Absolutely.
Or at least consider maybe not blame yourself, but at least consider what is it that I could have done differently to prevent this from occurring. And there's a huge emotional impact, whether it's an 800-pound steer, whether it's a 3-pound duck. The size of the animal doesn't change the fact there's still a life attached to it.
Yeah.
And it still has an emotional impact on you. And so when you come out there, animal husbandry is really, to me, that's where a lot of the passion comes from for me on our farm. When I first started getting into it, that was a source of therapy for me. It gave me a sense of purpose, is because these animals bring me joy, but not only do they bring me joy, they also rely on me to be on my A game, right? I could lay on the couch, I could be a piece of shit, I could wallow in my own self-pity, or I could get out there and I could take care of the farm and I could make a difference and I could do something good. And so it was very therapeutic. But when your source of therapy, you come out and you're like, I got 2 dead lambs this morning, or a dead steer, or whatever it might be, is not just a kick in the face or in the wallet. It really is a kick in the guts. Like it hits you very differently, right? And so I could see why a lot of people instinctively immediately want to jump to, we're done. Like, this is not fun anymore. I'm a failure. There's something I've missed. In the case of your steers, though, I mean, that decision was made for you before they even arrived, right? Like they sound like they ingested a bunch of plastic.
That seemed to be the case. However, I mean, I don't know for sure. I never did get a vet out there. The one fortunate thing for me is very close, I guess, with lots of the neighbors, done custom work for them, known them my whole life. So it was an easy call for me to make to get somebody there. And in fact, the neighbor came over right away. I mean, he has several hundred head of animals. Mm-hmm. So, and he had told me too, he said, like, it's what it is, man.
Yeah, no, and it's
like, you can't.
It's a tough day on the farm, and you're going to have tough days on the farm.
But that I would think is a litmus test right away. If you can't take that, and it eats you up for too long of a time period. Now there's a grieving part attached to that, or at least as far as I'm concerned, there should be. I mean, if you can just walk over and grab it with the grapple and just be as heartless as anything, I guess good on you. But and maybe with a lot of livestock comes that reality that this is going to happen.
Higher exposure is going to probably lessen the impact.
But if you can't sleep, and it has if you spend a lot of time dwelling on this failure, that probably is going to be basically a red flag that this probably isn't going to be for you.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not to say you can't make it on a hobby farm or a homestead. Maybe livestock isn't going to be your thing, because that's a totally different animal.
That's right. And that's the thing, is you have to accept, when you get into it at the very beginning, you have to accept that there is going to be losses of not just crop, but of life. It's going to happen. It's almost guaranteed. It's guaranteed that some of that will be when you're first getting into it, and maybe even afterwards, as a result of your own incompetence or ineptitude. You're going to ignore a thing, or you're going to, okay, well, I'll just keep an eye on this, or you're going to miss something. It happens, right?
Yeah.
We had a lamb die of pneumonia this year that I should have caught. 2 days prior, but I didn't, and I feel shitty about that. But and as heartless as it is, I have to say I'm going to get by it, and I'm going to learn from it. And next year, because there's going to be next year, I'm not going to swallow this one. Just let it eat me alive, right? I'm going to do better. You have to, right? How was it?
It burned a lot faster to the halfway point, and but to me the flavor profile hasn't really changed. Maybe it's getting a little less peppery.
Mine's very mild.
Interesting.
Very mild. Now maybe I mean, I'm a half a glass of whiskey ahead of you, and maybe I've got a number palate than you now.
You
I'm not
numbed
sure.
it.
Maybe.
I know
But,
the band is coming loose. It's
yeah,
getting,
mine's very like I can play mine like a trombone. Is it trombone? No.
oh yeah, probably.
Yeah, no, it's trombone.
Yeah, it's just like.
Did you ever look and see who the lady is on the cigar?
No, I did not.
Like the Queen of Honduras or something like that?
I did not.
No? Maybe that's some homework for us, but anyways, what else did I have in here? Okay, so yes. Quitting your hobby farm. There's two things that are gonna keep you or sell you on quitting the hobby farm. And two of those, it comes down to cost, right? The first is your sunk cost, the thing that you already invested in it. And the second is opportunity cost. So sunk cost deals with, like I said, everything you've already put into it. So if you've already put a significant amount of skin in the game, maybe just like us, you got $1 million of infrastructure in here. That's going to be really, really difficult to reconcile yourself with just hanging up your hat and saying, I'm done. Really difficult, right? And so the longer you've worked on something, the longer you've invested in something, the harder that decision is going to be. And that's why you see a lot of, I think, 65, 70-year-old farmers still out there pounding fence posts instead of just saying, okay, it's time to move into town, right? So that happens on any scale of farm. The other one is the opportunity cost. So that deals with, I guess, unrealized future cost or future monetary value. So it's the, every dollar that you could have spent doing something else, right? Every hour you put into continuing to feed cows, every hour you put zebras, whatever it is. That's just an extreme example, of course, because it seems to be relevant. But every hour you spend on doing that is an hour you could have spent doing something else and enjoying your life in some other way. And so somewhere between there is some balance. And if you aren't able to get that work-life balance on your farm, and all you're doing is working, you're going to have an unhappy spouse. You're going to have an unhappy kids. You're probably going to build up a certain amount of resentment yourself towards this endeavor, and it's going to happen. It's going to have a negative connotation. It's going to cause you to want to just get out of it much, much quicker than it needs to be. So the other side of it too is when do people want to sell? Like if you were like today, I want to sell the farm, why would that decision be made? Probably because you're having a bad day.
Yeah.
Probably, because everybody wants to sell when times are tough. When you're looking at, you look at your crop right now, what's growing in the field, you probably wouldn't be, because you've got $1 billion crop sitting there, right? It's not maybe not $1 billion, but there's a significant amount of crop that's looking really good, looking like you're going to have a fantastic year. That's never the year that people want to sell.
No.
But I mean, it's very cliche, but realistic. Everybody says get out while the getting's good, but then nobody actually wants to do it.
Well, I had that similar conversation with a neighbor. He was looking to rent out a couple of quarters, and he it was about maybe 6 years ago. Basically, we had encountered several bad falls, a few late springs, back to back to back. Now we did generally get we got most of the crop off and stuff. But there was so much work involved. And he said, "Oh, there's these 2 more quarters there. Hey, so you got to be plowed back and everything." And I told him right on the phone. I said, "Look, man, a year like this, a guy wants a little less.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking for anymore. Like we don't even have a decent plow to do this. So, and now you're going to need to. You're wanting someone who's already exhausted from putting the crop in, spraying the crop, spending the summer watching it, then watching it rain all fall, trying to get the crop off, and then get all the grain dried and." And now you're thinking I should come plow up 2 quarters and rent them for next year. Like I don't want what I have.
Yeah. Why would you want?
I have too much already. totally drained.
Yeah.
And then yet a year like this, it looked like spring was going to be late. I think we ended up finishing on about the 25th or something. Anyways, we generally see up until the 5th of June if it's late. So we had more time. And we started to look at the forecast and it looked nice. And I think I made the comment too. I said, it'd be nice to have a couple more.
Right.
Because things were going good. The drill had been repaired. We had 2 drills going for a while. I mean, we were knocking out 300 acres a day. It'd be nice to have a couple more.
It's a weird thing what incentive will do to the human mind, eh?
Absolutely. And prices were high.
Psychologically, I mean, everything looks advantageous. Really, that's probably the time we need to be looking at what can I scale back or what can I offload? Because from a sustainability perspective, you don't want to have to work more. Maybe you do want to work more, but regardless, I mean, you want to work more, but ultimately it's going to be, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, well, right? you want more to do with less work.
Yeah, so less work, same amount of yield, same amount of revenue, but less inputs to accomplish it, right?
Absolutely.
That's the end game. Working on 2 more quarters of land is not. That's just time for money. That's all that is, time for money. And that's never a good equation. Never a good equation. You're basically a slave to the land at that point, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah, and then when it does go the other way, and especially if you've stuck your neck out at a time like that, then it's exponentially easier to make that decision that, this is not for me.
Yeah.
I tried something here and it got really kicked in the teeth, and I don't want to do it at all anymore.
Yeah. No doubt. We're hour 51 in. We should probably, I don't know, there's got to be some folks that are watching now that maybe weren't watching at the beginning, so we should probably circle back on the
new swag.
On the new stuff. Yeah.
Swag. Well, we got I don't know if everybody's seen the coffee cup. I'll pull those out too, but we do have these came in the other day.
Custom whiskey glass.
Sublimated smoke and oak whiskey glasses. This is the first one of that. Chad, I believe, already has a coffee cup, but they look the best because they're on white. And
the coffee cups are really sharp.
They are uptown.
I think that's what, if I caught it right in the comments, I think that's what Kristen said. She drinks coffee more.
So there's that, and coffee cup, whiskey glass, and even a.
Can you reach that?
I can't. Pretty cool. So we went with this blue color. It's a really nice color, but we did a little bit of research on what colors would soak up sublimation, and if you go with a dark color, you wouldn't see this at all. So if you went with, white would be ideal, but who really wants a white hoodie?
Who wants a white hoodie? Eh?
That's I think it turned out pretty well, anyways. So, there's a couple of these kicking around. So I guess if you don't know already, we do a giveaway at the end of the live stream for those who have commented.
Yeah.
And I guess now you'll have a choice between a sweater and a coffee cup or a whiskey cup.
So how do we so that's what we want to do. If you leave a comment in the comment section, if you've been watching, if you've been asking questions, enter your name in a draw, and then when they win, what do? We reach out to them and see which one they want.
We'll see which one you want.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then
the pool's getting kind of small, so odds of winning are fairly good.
So the odds of winning are exceptionally high, because you've already won. Congratulations. But if you haven't won, there's only really a half a dozen people that routinely watch that haven't cycled through yet and got a whiskey glass or coffee cup. And
that being said too, we certainly would appreciate if you guys would help us spread the word. We like to get more people in here.
Yeah, that's the whole game, right? So big picture wise, we're gonna have the giveaway for the humidor, one not quite like this one, but same size. So if you can refer somebody to subscribe to the channel, come to some of the live streams, that would be awesome. And we'll put, if they say, hey, you know what, Rod or Fred or Chad or Jeremy or whoever told us to come here and okay, well, we'll throw your name in a draw for our humidor. And then you really can join us for a cigar.
Absolutely. Right? It's just a cool piece to have. I mean, you don't need a $25 million mansion with a study and a wine cellar full of thousands of bottles of wine and fancy scotches. You just need the will and the want to have these kind of discussions and to make that time, work on your I can't put this on here. Work on your own health a little bit.
Yeah.
Take time out and
cigars and whiskey. Work on your own health.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't take time for your
mental health, you're gonna have to make time for your mental illness.
Absolutely.
That's the truth, right? So that's always something that's hard for people to reconcile themselves with, right? But aside, when we started getting into this, I mentioned the therapy of the animal side of things. We've also talked about how significantly defeated you can feel when things go sideways. But the community piece of it, having not necessarily a shoulder to cry on, but somebody that you can reach out to. There's a lot of subject matter experts in the community.
Absolutely.
That have experienced things, even if it's just to say, yeah, you know what, some days on the farm are shitty.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to reconcile yourself with that, just to give you some perspective, or to say, hey, you know what, next time you experience this, maybe try this, and this. You might have some better luck. Understand communication, or communicating the successes and challenges within the community is going to make your life so much better. Right? If you're trying to be an island on your own little hobby farm, or even a large farm for that matter, you try to exist as an island, it's going to get lonely real quick. And you're going to have problems. And if you're the only one that's there to solve them, it's probably not going to be that enjoyable.
No.
Right? Sometimes you need somebody to bitch to. Sometimes you need somebody to vent to. Sometimes you need somebody to bounce ideas off of. Sometimes you need somebody to say, hey, you know what? I had a great day today and things went really well, and share your joy and share your passion with. And that's ultimately, I think, what we're trying to accomplish, is share our passion with like-minded individuals at the same time as communicating that we also face similar challenges to what a lot of other people do, right? So
absolutely. And a great example of that. So when you open this up with that Facebook post and the well being what was this individual's effectively a breaking point. And I read that and I thought, like, oh man, that sucks. But then I instantly thought, I've pulled like 3 wells in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Because a friend phoned and said something up with my water well. Yeah. Have you done this before? And fortunately I had.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, absolutely, man. Because this is the one thing we can't be without on the farm. For ourselves, for our livestock, for our gardens, for anything, is water.
You don't have water, you're done. You're dead in the water.
So, and fortunately, I was willing. I had the time, and I went right over there, and we got them both working.
Yeah.
So these expenses that initially seemed like, oh my goodness, worst case scenario, I got to drill another one for $15,000. At the end of the day, ends up being, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people sitting on the grass drinking a beer. And the water flowing again.
Yeah.
$300, maybe no dollars, just spliced a wire back
maybe
together.
Maybe spliced a wire.
Was one case.
Pipe, something like that, right?
So these issues sometimes aren't, I'm already getting stuffed up, sometimes aren't quite as monumental as they appear if you have a little bit of a community, a little bit of a sounding board, a place to put these questions out there and to get some help.
Yeah, absolutely. So for I guess to circle back to that one, so that lady had said too, well, I don't have a ton of friends she doesn't have a ton of friends to begin with, and I can relate to that. I run I keep putting that way over there. Yeah. I run a pretty small circle myself because
you lose your only friend.
There's not a lot of people that have similar values to me that are within our locality. Let's just say that, right? The community is large, but there, when we talk about like-minded individuals, there's not a lot of people that are immediately adjacent that we know that we can interact with and that we would trust our kids with, right? That's a big thing too, right? So if you're just getting into it, or maybe you've been into it for a while, and you are an island, how then do you build your community? Maybe you just got to go to the farmer's market.
Yeah, well,
maybe you know, because the Facebook's a really good sounding board for I have this problem. Please judge me accordingly. You know, I've never put a lot of faith in that. I mean, there's a few really helpful people there, and I always try to be an ally like that myself. I always try to, if I'm going to make a comment on something, it's got to be helpful.
Yeah,
it's got to be solutions oriented. But I mean, people in general, I don't know why. There's a whole group of people that just take great joy in chewing other people up, spitting them out, and they find value in just ruining other people's days. And so if you're gonna say something, it doesn't necessarily have to be nice, but it has to be useful. And so turning to the internet for comments can sometimes not always be useful.
No.
So you have to find within your locale somewhere, again, maybe not friends, but still people that you can rely on sometimes for information, for ideas sharing. You know,
well, and there is definitely a peer group, and that's one amazing thing with meeting so many people with doing the feed. I've learned so much. I've learned it's amazing how many people are doing things. You know, like rendering fat down for baking, or making soap, making candles, making all these things. There's a tremendous amount of knowledge out there, and if you can get past your introvert stage and be willing to get out and have a conversation with somebody who's maybe made a wrong turn and turned around at the end of your driveway instead of instantly reporting it to Rural Crime Watch, maybe.
Yeah,
heaven forbid.
That's an interesting thing too.
Go say hi.
Not so much the crime watch, but the introvert side. Why do a lot of people seek the rural lifestyle? Because they don't want the hustle and bustle. They don't want to deal with the BS of a lot of other people's drama. There's a lot of hobby farmers. There's a lot of even small homesteaders that are introverted people.
Absolutely.
Right, and they're just quite happy to just exist on their own and not have to deal with the drama. And that's why I say, the community side of it is important. You don't necessarily have to be, besties with everybody you meet, but to be able to have some sort of, level of understanding with each other, cooperation, working together, that's important.
Well, we talked about that. I think even maybe the last stream we went on a little bit of a tangent where, those that think they want to be an introvert because they don't want to deal with people, maybe you're just dealing with the wrong people.
Oh, I think there's a lot of that. Yeah.
Once you find out that you can sit down for 2 or 4 or 6 hours and just converse with a peer group of people, 1 or 2 or 10 or however many it may be, you'll find out that you're actually not an introvert. You're just talking to the wrong people. And
yeah,
one of the back to the how, when, and why of selling a farm or selling a homestead. If you are totally alone, your struggles are going to be infinitely harder than somebody with resources.
Just organically, they will be 100%.
I mean, and in that post that you opened with, that showed a lot of the stuff in there we covered tonight, from livestock loss to things like that. Whereas the big things that seem to set that individual off, if you had a community of people, odds are someone could help you with that. Because 100%. At the base of that, it wasn't altogether, it was an overwhelming situation. I'm not taking anything away from this person. However, if you were to piece this out and break it up, none of this was a very big deal.
And like I said, that's what it is. It's really it's the straw that broke the camel's back, right? It's a very trivial, inconsequential thing, but at the end of obviously a long road of some personal anguish, it was just one more nail in the coffin. It just is like, I'm just done with the day, or I'm just done with this, right? I can see how people get there for sure. But yeah, if you're going to tackle it alone, it's not good. Fred even just said he really enjoys function at the local hall. It's a bitch fest and solve the world's problems over a beer. And sometimes that's all you have to do, right? Is just.
Well, I think that's effectively what this was, right? When we started this back in the winter, it was a COVID town hall.
Yeah, totally what it is, right? There was no other avenues to be able to get together and do anything. And, you know, it's here we are. It's still a thing, right?
Here we are.
But, you know, because we started our YouTube channel probably 3 years ago. And since that day, I've probably had, well, easily hundreds. I don't know, I wouldn't say thousands, but hundreds of people for sure reach out about a challenge that they're facing. And so I just want to renew that commitment. I'm sure you'll make that same commitment that if you're facing a challenge on your homestead, your farm, your hobby farm, your acreage, whatever it is, whether it's livestock, whether it's crop production, whether it's your market garden, whatever you're trying to work on, bounce it off this group, bounce
Absolutely.
it off us, right? Because it's more than just us. There's all these other people that subscribe to our channels too.
Yep.
And the community, even if it's not within our locale, I know there's a lot of really good people out there that have experienced similar struggles that are really don't want other people to suffer.
No, absolutely
Right.
not.
You know?
Very few people are true sadists. It takes a unique personality to be that morally corrupt.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are less inclined to ask a question they feel will make them appear. Nobody wants to ask a stupid question,
No,
right? Nobody wants to ask a stupid question. But the thing is I always encourage people to ask the stupid question, because if you have the courage to ask the stupid question, you'll be surprised how many people sit in that same room with you that don't have the answer.
oh, absolutely.
Right, and the best way to find the answer is to collectively pursue it together.
And you'll find out how many infinite people in the willows behind you are waiting for the answer to the question you
Just
asked.
waiting for somebody to ask, and just yeah.
That's one of the coolest thing I find about YouTube is when you go on a video or you put out a video and then the comments start and I mean people are replying to each other in the comment section, and you're like, you know, this worked. I seen it the other day when the boom on my sprayer broke. And it's funny, I don't know why mechanics and dealerships, they say this, like, oh, never heard of that before.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking, like, you had the part in stock.
Yeah.
You obviously heard of this
What do you
before.
mean you never heard of it before?
And then actually on that video, because I made the video, a guy chimed in, he's like, yeah, it happened to the neighbor, and the boom wiped out the tire when it come around. And I was just like, well, that really sucks. But I'm not the only one. Right?
No,
Takes a bit of this sting away from just getting off the phone with the dealer. That's, yeah, I got one here. It's $500 or $300. I've never heard of this before.
It doesn't lessen the wound, but it does take the pain away.
Yeah, you can, you know, there's someone
At
out
least-
there who's also experienced this.
At least you know the universe isn't out to get just you.
Yeah, and sometimes when we're at our darkest moments, that's the last fleeting thought we have is, I've been singled out.
Yeah.
This
for
only
sure.
happened to me.
It
Everybody
happens
else
to me. Why
on
is it-
Pinterest and YouTube is enjoying every minute of every day.
Yeah.
And I can't figure this out. I hate it here.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe you've just looked in the wrong place, because most of us have had those real bad days.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think I'm halfway now.
On a pursuit for a 2-hour cigar, we ended up with a 4-hour cigar.
Probably 4. Yeah, because we're over 2 hours now into it, and yeah, we're halfway.
Those 5x50s are 2-hour cigars.
And I think that's the
Or
way.
7x50s, 5x50s.
7x50.
This is 7x70.
This is 7x70. Yeah, the Monte Cristos I think was 7x50.
So those are 2-hour
or 52
cigars.
or something like that. Yeah. Those are good cigars. If you can just keep them lit, and we'll have to see. Maybe we'll try. I don't know. I don't think we'll go back to them right away.
No.
Try something else.
Well, I
Maybe,
want to do those Romeos now that
There's the Romeos. There's also, you got some La Gloria Cubana or La Gloria Havana.
I don't remember what those were. Those were the ones that came in the Trinidad box, which was
Became mislabeled. Yeah, that was
mislabeled.
kind of a trick. La Gloria Cubana. Yeah, they're from Havana and Cuba.
What a difference in size, though, eh? Like, so we've been smoking
Yeah,
on these for 2 hours,
Imagine this,
and that
and that's essentially what you're already starting with half of this.
amazing.
You know, we're definitely gonna make a night of it with this one. But
Absolutely. Well, my fancy Nancy ring is off.
what are you thinking about the whiskey?
I like it. I do.
I really like it.
And it's like I say, it's a 180 from things like the Dalmore and those more. I'm almost gonna say like a dessert.
Well,
Type
and that's
Scotch.
what I thought. Definitely the
Like
Dalmore
they
was
tasted
like,
like juice right away.
it was very fruity and it was very easy to drink.
There was no sting to it at all. And this is more.
This has so much depth and profile to it. I don't get any of that. Where did I put the notes on that? Salted popcorn? Nope, not getting that. Honey roasted nuts, tarry ropes, light hints of freshly chopped. No, I'm not getting any of that.
I think the next live we're going to start with the Scotch as opposed to like lighting the cigar, and maybe we'll get the flavors, because once you have polluted your mouth with the overwhelming smoke of leather, earth, cedar,
it's tough to adjust your palate back to the whiskey.
You're not gonna. Yeah. I don't think
maybe you need to start. Maybe you need to start with the whiskey. You're right. It's a very good point. But yeah, okay. Cooking spices, I could probably get there. Toasted almonds and ash. I don't. But
maybe ash.
But if I were to say, what does Scotch taste like? Again, from a memory sense, if I were to think, if I'd only ever drank Scotch once in my lifetime, what would it taste like? And I was just trying to recall that. That would probably get me there.
Yep, I agree.
You know, if I were to think about being 18 years old, drinking Alexander Bell's Scotch at the farm right before I flew to Canada, although the two Scotches are very different, but that's where I would go.
Yeah,
like this is what Scotch tastes like. Whereas, and I always find it amazing is that every different distillery produces such extravagantly different flavor profiles.
They do, and it's amazing when we do the research on them. You find out the geography and how close everything is. You wouldn't expect such drastic changes from bottle to bottle.
You wouldn't expect, like I mentioned at the beginning, like Lagavulin is right beside Lefroy, right beside it, but the water source is different, the peat is different, and if you drink that one, I mean that's all smoke and peat. That's all that is, smoke and peat.
Well, we tried that one night.
That
was after that rum or something.
We just nipped the top of that bottle. I mean, maybe we should tackle that one here in the future, but because most of these we get down, we're about a third of the way in this one, but usually we'll get a half a bottle in.
Yeah.
But that one, I think we've just cracked it.
Well, I think we were down that much of the Appleton Estates.
Well, yeah, we had a head start on something else, right? So
back in amateur hour.
You know, it's funny because I just for fun, I've tried to take a screenshot mid-video of every one we've ever done, just to see the progression. And if you go back and you look at that original one, we had it was like a plastic table down in the shop with the tractor behind us,
and copper ashtray,
and the copper ashtray that my old man made when he was like 16 years old, which is up here. Got a baseball on it. Uncle Larry's baseball on it. Just a conversation piece, right? And the Appletons, there was a bottle of Glenfiddich, and then the second live stream I brought the bottle of Lefroy, and we just pulled the cap off of it. We never delved into it. But incredible to think, yeah, now we've got, like I said, 15 bottles of Scotch, 4 bottles of rum. I don't know if we've ever really, have we touched much for the rum aside from the Appletons?
We didn't even open.
I think the Appletons is the only rum we opened.
That was the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, first and only, because that gave you a rough go that day.
You had this humidor full of cedar blocks.
We had like 5 cigars in there.
Well, we didn't have that actually even at the start. We had a plastic.
There was a Pelican case with the Bovita packs.
And then when we got this, you had it full of cedar things. And I thought, like, how are we ever going to fill that up?
Yeah, when you brought those 2 cases over, I could barely fit them all in, right? So, you know.
Perfect.
That is a good cigar, though. I like it. It was a challenge to keep lit during the first half. Now it's smoking very smooth. The draw is good. I think if you had 4 hours,
Yeah.
you know, whether it was to converse with somebody or maybe just to sit on your back deck and then enjoy a pot of coffee, maybe a pot of coffee, not so much a cup.
Well, I'm going to call these introvert cigars. So if you're going to go to a wedding where you don't like anybody there, you take this with you. You can stand in the smoking section for the entire party and be left alone.
Nod at a couple people. Hey,
Have
that would be all you'd have to do.
Pretty much. Because I don't know the rule. Are you allowed to say cut the end of this off and fire it back in the humidor? Did you ever research that?
You know what? There is. We'll have to bring that one back for a future live stream. But yes, you can. There's a gentleman called Eddie Sahakian. I don't know if you know who Eddie Sahakian is. Eddie and Edward Sahakian, father and son, they own Davidoff of London. They're like cigar gurus.
Oh, okay.
In the cigar world, they're like,
that was the YouTube thing you sent me.
Number 1 and number 2. Well, no, that was Nick Folks.
Oh, okay.
So Nick Folks is a close third, I would say. But so they own Davidoff of London, and I recently did see they had a video on how to, if you haven't finished a cigar but you want to come back and enjoy it later, but I haven't had an opportunity to watch that video yet. But yeah, Nick Folks and Sons is an interesting channel as well. Two folks from the old country, Nick Folks obviously, and his boy Max, and there's another boy that sits behind the camera. He's not a big fan of cigars, but he's a videographer, and so they have some interesting conversation anyways, and they also like to dress pretty fine, as do we. So it's funny because I was on a recent trip to Edmonton. I told you this before we started, and after our work meetings there, get together for a couple of drinks, and one of the gentlemen I was working with maybe had too much in his glass at one point in time and was putting it down a little too fast. At the end of the evening, what's better to balance the evening than a nice cigar? So we crack open a couple of cigars, and they're just small ones, right? Like a 4.5 inch, 50 ring gauge. You can finish those within an hour, kind of thing. And the next morning, like he couldn't even talk. could not talk, and was like, "Oh yeah, the cigars." Find out, yeah. So he's puffing and inhaling the cigar at the same time as just like necking the whiskey, like this, it's like this much whiskey in the glass, and just bam, bam. So naturally, gonna have a good time, and not so much the next day.
Good time in a rough morning.
But neither of these things are intended to be, I guess, exercise in excess.
No, absolutely not.
They're intended to be enjoyed slowly and purposefully, as as a facilitator of conversation.
I think that's why this all fit.
Yeah.
Right? Like we had said earlier, neither one of us were smokers, and really neither of us are big drinkers, but yet this seemed to fit what we wanted to.
Yeah, you can sit and you can have a good chat, you can slow down, and that's the thing that I think we talked about, that there, men's health. We touched on that, but we didn't really give it any credence. And maybe it's a subject. I know it's on the agenda.
It's on the poll every time.
For agenda, the stigma of men's mental health, and it always kind of hits that 25% of the crowd wants to talk about the stigma of men's mental health. But to me, and this is a huge portion of it, right? As I said, I have a very, very small circle. There's a small circle of people that I work with. There's a very small circle of people that I socialize with. And there's an even smaller circle of people that I would trust my children. And so to be able to have these conversations is important, because I don't just wash my laundry in public.
Yeah.
I don't do that, right? Some people can do that. It's not my cup of tea, right? So previously we did the famine video, right? That was kind of a forced, like, we need to have this conversation.
Yeah, that might be in the top of my favorite one. I was mean, I was excited to do the research into that because
Yeah.
there was a lot of stuff that I learned. I thought that was a good one.
It was a really good one. And if for anybody that's not watching that hasn't watched that video, I would recommend you go back. I don't know, it was a couple hours, right?
Yeah.
I know for some folks it's hard to set aside a couple hours, and we again really appreciate the folks that do set aside the couple hours. But if you do have some spare time to go back and watch that famine video, it's important because it's something that obviously we're both significant, but we're very passionate about, right? About food security, as well, you know, what that means to our families. But maybe we need to just say we're not polling the next one, or at some point we're just, this is what we're going to talk about in the next one, right? And maybe that is men's mental health.
Well, for sure. When I was talking to another guy earlier in the week, and you know, he watches these and he was excited. Like he said, he's been a little bit busy, hasn't been able to tune in, and you know, he brought it up. He said, "Yeah," he said, "I vote for that one every time." So he's having, you know, something he wants to be part of for sure.
Chad just said, haha, you're still on. My neighbor dropped off my brilliant cedar 40-ish minutes ago and back. Oh, so he must have had an intermission.
Absolutely, and that's the thing too. I mean, I'm sure obviously people understand this, but I mean, I don't expect people to sit here for
I don't expect
2 hours either. We appreciate you coming on for 5, 10, 15, 20
Yeah,
minutes, whatever it is. Hear a piece of trivia, rewind, you know, throw out a comment, throw out a suggestion, throw out anything, participate, keep the conversation rolling. We do quite a bit of, I mean, generally, we must have quite a few papers stacked up now after this must be 9 or 10 live streams.
Yeah, I don't know when we're going to write the book.
To try to keep the conversation flowing. The famine one was awesome because there was a lot of real factual numbers.
Oh, there's nothing but numbers in that. It's all like, there's no opinion in that. It's
and
all
when
facts, right?
when we did our consumer shopping live stream, there was a lot of numbers in that. There's a lot of good stuff in here.
Pulling the band off. It's time.
It's time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess question for the group. You know, we only got 8 people on right now, but question for the group: if we did compile all this, I'm not sure how we'd go about it. We're pretty good at doing research. I'm sure we could find out in 2 weeks if you gave us 2 weeks. But if we compiled all of this into a book, do you think the appetite is there amidst the community to buy that book? Do you think it'd be a New York Times bestseller? Or do you think it would fall on deaf ears as do our woes about the grocery store?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I know for myself, I get excited about the information in here, but as you just said, I wouldn't have believed the general population would be so apathetic about shopping local, saving money as they prove to be.
Well, I think it's a sinful thing.
It definitely is. And for those who feel like they don't want to put themselves out there to ask a stupid question or admit they don't know something, I think the fear would keep them from basically pursuing any further knowledge. They're just kind of good with a 15-minute YouTube clip. And if the answer isn't there, they go to the next one. And there's really not a need to fill their day with any before and after. They more just want.
I recently had one of those people comment on one of my videos. So get to the point. And I was like, no, I'm not going to get to the point. Because if I just give you the beginning, if I just give you the problem, and I just give you the solution, there's nothing in between for context or value or meaning. There's always that instant gratification piece. And I honestly believe that instant gratification is it's going to be the demise of society. That's what leads us towards that idiocracy that we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. And no, I'm going to give you the context. If you can't sit there and listen to the lesson that I've had to suffer through, if you can't at least hear the lesson, then you don't deserve the answer.
You don't deserve
the answer, right? So, but anyways, I mean, we've got, there's a stack right up here in the bookshelf, a big stack of paper. I mean, we're halfway to a full book already, so I don't think we'd have to do too many more live streams to put some together. Chad says you guys are interested in mental health is an important topic. I agree. Something that's I wouldn't say it's necessarily not talked about enough, because it is talked about a lot in modern society, but I don't think it's not given the correct context.
I was just
Right.
going to say it doesn't seem to be relayed, at least what I would consider properly. You're seeing a lot of, I don't know, I don't want to get into it. We'll get into it on the live stream, I guess.
We'll have to, but I'm going to repeat this fact now ahead of the live stream. Sorry, that really burned. Oh. All of the studies on mental health, almost all of them, were conducted during the 1950s and 1960s on the impact to women's mental health. Which, and I don't want to take anything away from that because that is, of course, very important also. But as I mentioned earlier, men's thought process is significantly different than a woman's. And so you cannot base medicine off of something that is entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
It's like doing trials on rats and expecting the same result in humans.
Yeah.
Right. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And so the two are very separate. The needs are different, the impact is different, the solution is different. And I think it's worthy of a conversation anyways. So Chad said, okay, oh yeah, good comment. This interaction is important to make you think about your own situation and life lessons. Absolutely. Martian, she must be there with Ken. Say, we've been here with YouTube the whole live. Thanks for discussing the topic tonight. We appreciate it. And, I got to say, multiple times we've polled the group for subject matter, and that's really what forms the basis of it is what are the challenges you as viewers are facing, and how can we, whether we're helping or whether we're just having a conversation and know we're on the same page, we share the same values, we share the same challenges. This wouldn't be as good if we weren't talking to the folks at home about the things that they understand, the things that they're having to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're willing to suggest a topic, we'll talk about it all night long, right? So we really appreciate, the opportunity to talk about something that is definitely a challenge maybe you're facing or maybe somebody is facing, right? So hopefully Kent and Martian aren't looking at that, getting out of the game. And that's one thing. I never really touched on this, but we should circle back. I'm sorry, I lost it in my paperwork. Is the number one reason to quit hobby farming. It was the very first one. You're underutilizing your resources. Maybe you're going pro, and that's ultimately the game. When you get into homesteading, you get into hobby farming, what is the game? It's not to just work 40 or 60 or like that lady, hours a week to come and sustain a hobby of yours.
Yeah.
It is eventually, I think a vast majority of the community wants to get to a point where that hobby will sustain itself.
Yeah.
And no longer become a hobby. It can just become an actual lifestyle, right? And so that's a really good reason to get out of hobby farming. If you've done the math, if you've weighed the odds, if you've measured the risk, and you're ready to get into it and buy a bigger cedar, or buy more livestock, buy another quarter of land, and just go for it, right? But you shouldn't make that decision by yourself. If you're in a situation where you've got wife, kids, whatever it is, make sure that they understand the ramifications, the benefits, the challenges you're going to face, so that spousal support is there, because they're going to have to weather that storm with you as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So want to end on that. Like, if you're going to get out of hobby farming, the best way to do it is to get into, I guess, professional farming, right?
Yeah, exactly. You shed your old skin, and you tackle on something, maybe bigger.
Yeah. So, but that's all I really had on the subject tonight. I'm not sure about you, but
no, I got most of it through there, I think. I know when I had I sort of struggled trying to compile the notes here because I just had that busy spring season, and all of this was being done on auto steer, waiting 4 minutes to get to the end of the field,
So you can turn around.
and then turn around and
Do it
start
again.
all over again.
Yeah,
But
and that is a challenge. And I guess we appreciate the viewers, and we do try to do a lot of research for this, but sometimes it's done in between. I mean, I've got a day job, you're full-time farming, and so we're trying to pull the homework for all this, compile it together, not in our downtime, right? It's usually done while we're
Exactly.
we're trying to multitask, right?
Yeah, a little bit of later evenings. Even this cigar synopsis was done like, on the one we didn't even smoke was done just before I came here, because we weren't sure what one we were going to use for the evening.
I'm really surprised you went with the
I was feeling pretty good when I got here.
That
but
must be a hell of a cigar for you to just.
It's getting me now, but
Yeah,
I can even feel the voice like deteriorating.
Tomorrow's going to be a bad day for you, or
it's going to rain tomorrow though, so it's going to be a good day. I'm gonna watch the peas grow.
So what is it? Peas are going to grow. Okay, what else you got in?
Well, the sunflowers are coming along quite swimmingly from the total disaster that I thought they were going to be. We got 2 out of 3 canola crops that look really well. The cereals all look really good. We did have quite a Canada thistle issue, but the chemical seems to have top growth suppressed that. So things are looking pretty good. If we can dodge some hailstorms, we can dodge that early August frost.
Did you get hail the other day?
We didn't. We haven't had rain.
We turned white here.
Did you?
Like, enough
you should text me when that happens.
Evenly coat. It wasn't a ton, but it was enough to evenly coat everything, and within 10 minutes it was all melted and gone. But yeah, or what? Like, holy man, the skies just opened up. I'm interested about these sunflowers. So, like, what's the inspiration behind the sunflowers?
Well, I only got them originally because we have a 5-acre piece around our dugout that we plowed up 2 years ago, put oats there last year. Didn't really know what we were going to do it this year. Our original plan was plow it back, crop it once, land level it, seed it back to grass, roll it. And then I had a lot of people last year and the year before. The chicken feed is amazing. Actually, had our government inspection last week or whatever for the feed mill part. And, the lady we were just conversing back and forth, and she said, well, what do you sell a lot of? And I said, it's chicken feed. And by federal regulation, we're not allowed to call it chicken feed.
No, it's going to be
just mixed grain.
Grain mix, right?
Because if we call it chicken feed, now it has to conform to what the government thinks chicken feed should be. And she was quite receptive. And I said, but it's amazing. We have like no negative results from this. And in fact, we hear the exact opposite for people saying egg production goes up. We had one guy say that when we couldn't make his feed for him and his bobcat was broke, so he couldn't get a big bag, he switched over to Keddies for about 3 or 4 months, and they shouldn't have name dropped them, switched over to another mill. And he said they couldn't eat the eggs anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like,
you know why that is?
I was kind of confused because the majority of people get their chicken feed from PB Mart, UFA, or Keddies or whatever, and they don't seem to have a problem. But this guy switching from one back to the other, and he said, they wouldn't eat the eggs anymore. It gave him the drive to get his skid steer fixed. Imagine if you ate steak every day.
Imagine you ate steak every day, how good a condition you'd be in. And then one day I said, you're going to eat a plant-based meat alternative. How shitty you'd feel that next day. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. It's kind of a taboo thing, but at the end of the day, you switch up the diet on any kind of animal, it's going to have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a firm believer that although soy will boost the protein levels, you're going to see egg production, but you're going to see significantly less nutrients in that egg because you're only seeing protein. You're not seeing all the other nutrients that need to go into it. And at the end of the day, the product you produce is going to be of less value than if you were to just not feed them and turn them loose on the grass and eat dandelions.
I had a guy tell me about 3 weeks ago, and arguably corn and soy are the worst grains you can feed.
They are. They're fillers. They're high energy, high protein, but they lack all of the other vitamins, minerals, nutrients required to make a healthy animal.
And that's again another, it's another environmental change has to be made, a mentality shift has to be made, that if you're going to go, this could be a topic for another live stream too. If you're going to go this farm direct, pasture raised, locally grown route, and you're going to try to market as that, one thing you've got to watch is you're not trying to do that on a commercially formulated feed.
Yeah.
The moment you start to force feed a commercially formulated feed, supplement heavy feed, you no longer morally should claim that you are a farm raised, pasture raised, grain fed animal. It was the same argument I had 2 years ago with a grain buyer, and I said, are they bringing up corn? And they were, and they still are. They're bringing up record amounts of corn to the feedlots in southern Alberta. Do you ever go into a grocery store and you see the tag on that meat that says
Alberta AAA
no
beef.
longer Alberta AAA meat? We've covered this on almost every live stream we've done.
Yeah.
There's two things that separate Alberta beef from anywhere else, and it's not ethical farms. It's ethical farms all over the planet.
Sure there is. Yeah.
It's climate and it's barley.
Yeah.
The minute you eliminate the barley, now all you have is climate. So you could,
Yeah.
I guess, label it as raised in Alberta, fed on Texas
Yeah,
corn.
I mean, you could put the sticker on that says raised in Alberta, but you can't call it AAA. You really can't. It's not the same. The marbling's not the same. The consistency of the meat is not the same. Flavor profile is completely different.
No.
It's not the same product. You might as well buy a steak out of Argentina.
Absolutely.
Right. So, Chad just said showering here now, but the hoppers are hatching out in my pastures.
Oh boy.
That's an interesting one. Maybe, just maybe, you need a mobile chicken coop. If you can run chickens with your cows, laying chickens, in a case where you have a significant amount of grasshoppers, you don't, and this is where, and it's bad for the grain farmer. I apologize because you sell chicken feed, but you literally don't need to feed those chickens. They will get all the protein they need out of those grasshoppers. And
it's amazing how big the pie is. I advocate for everything that possibly impacts grain sales.
Yeah.
Because the pie is big enough. I mean, we had 15 bags to make today. And while my dad was helping Corey dig in the water line, he looked up and he shook his head. He said, are people still buying grain? Like, is everything not out to pasture?
Yeah.
And I said, everything is out to pasture. However,
but how many people do you sell for that are under 40 acres?
Well, lots, but acreage doesn't matter. We have customers with 500-600 head of animals that have 8 steers in the fattening pen.
Yeah.
Year round. We have tremendous amount of people with 100 broilers out on grass that get half a pail of grain a day.
Yeah, sure. We just went through that.
Right. We have, so it doesn't, to me, it's, I don't know. That's why I set up that Facebook page. It's all about, getting this finished product to market, because the better the producer of the meat does, the better I'll do. I mean, I don't look to the market. I've said that time and time again. The little bit we raise is for ourselves and for our family and extended families.
It's an interesting thing, because there's a gentleman I work with, they bought an acre just outside of Beaver Lodge, and he says, like, what does a horse eat? And, to me, that's a nonsensical question. I was like, what do you mean, what does a horse eat? Well, can it just eat hay all summer long? They buy an acreage, they don't have the ground to sustain it, pasture it. They got to feed it hay bales all summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, again, the small holder, there's people with a lot less land than they have the animal base for. What do they call that? Animal units, right?
And yeah,
I forget what it's exactly called, but anyways, you got more animals than they have acreage, and so they have to bring in bales and grain and all this kind of stuff. And couldn't imagine if we had to feed hay and grain 365 days of the year. where's the benefit there?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Because then it's all work.
Absolutely, and it's another thing with the grain sales. There was a guy that just picked up 3 bags of grain today, and we were talking about even grass fed. And I'm not against grass fed. My personal choice is to have grain finished. I've had grass finished, and when they have a little bit of grain, I just prefer that. Maybe I'm a bias because I'm a grain farmer, but I believe a lot of people, they like to see grain finished on the package. They would like what's in the package to be better than grass finished.
Better than grass finished.
Right?
Yeah.
They just
they like the idea of grass finished, but when they actually want the product, they want it to be. They want grass finished to really be better than it actually is.
And with that is back to why it's a year-round thing.
But is that because people want a 16-ounce steak versus a 10-ounce steak?
I don't know if it's a size thing. It's it's like you said, with a marbling thing, a fat content thing. You're not going to get the same fat content off a 100% grass finished anything.
Yeah.
Now I realize some animals convert differently. Some even some breed of cattle are more readily used to eating roughage basically and whatever else. Like twigs and leaves and rose bushes and stuff. Highland cattle are one.
Yeah.
But
there's primitive breeds,
I guess so, that are used to doing with less.
Yeah.
But most people, and it's a hands-on type thing. If you're there anyways, I find most people think, well, what's the shame in giving them a scoop of grain too?
Yeah.
And then they do that year round.
We fed a lot of grain here in the spring with the lambs because. I won't profess to be any kind of an expert with sheep. I try my best every day, but I'm learning stuff every day for sure. But okay, well, we're gonna start them coming off of mother's milk and start them on a bit of grain for rumen development. So hopefully, when they get to grass, they'll do better. But they're ultimately going to have to be grain finished. Otherwise, we're never going to make weight, right? And yeah, it is funny. There's always a lot of social pressure for the grass-fed, for lean meats.
Yeah.
But then if you actually eat lean meat, sometimes it's not that enjoyable.
No, not really.
It's dry. It's tough.
The little bit that we've moved that didn't go well. Well, everybody that gets meat from us, I tell them, and I tell my wife to tell them, I want to know, good or bad. Let me know what you think of this.
Yeah.
And I mean, we just had a lady the other day. She said that the pork is unbelievable. But I mean, you and I beat this around time. The pork is probably pork and an egg are probably the 2 biggest things you'll notice.
They're the biggest ones you can impact for sure in terms of end product quality.
When you buy that gray looking jellyfish type meat that they call pork tenderloin at Costco, product of whatever, and you dice that up and freezer pack it and take it to the rig and throw it in the freezer and you fry that up, it just tastes like bullseye barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
Because that's what you've covered.
That's the only thing you've had to do. You've had to just completely mask it.
There's probably, to get a feed analysis on it, it's probably nothing. It's probably just a awkwardly textured piece of.
You're just getting protein.
Gray.
You're just getting protein conversion from whatever you give them to whatever you eat.
But you take something that's been 9 months raised on, and I mean our pigs, they foraged all summer and most of the fall and into the winter. We didn't send the last ones out, I think, until after Christmas.
Yeah.
And steers same way. They get 2 pails of grain for the 8 steers every day.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go up there twice, then they get 4 pails that day. There's nothing really scientific about it.
No.
But boy, oh boy, their reviews are always. Well, and then everybody says put me down for one more next year.
So because we freeze all of ours, right? I've got no qualms about the freezer as opposed to fresh. But when you defrost that, whether it's a pork chop or pork shoulder or something like that, and it is pink, like it is good looking meat. You could tell when there's actually flavor to it. You don't need a ton of seasoning. You don't versus you go to Costco, like you say, and you buy that gray meat or God forbid you buy their chicken breast now. Seasoned chicken breast. What is seasoned chicken breast? It means that they've taken the chicken breast off and they've injected it with salt water.
Salt water.
Right, to puff it up and make it look bigger and make it look more colorful, to add some flavor where none exists, versus pasture poultry when we just butchered 80 of them. You know, Fred just said he did his. I think he got 500 pounds of meat off of his, and
yeah,
I think we had 480 pounds of meat come off of ours, so pretty close. And you know, the fat streaks do that. It's yellow. The meat is pink. It cooks differently. You barely need to season it at all. And you can eat a chicken breast that's this big and you're full, right? Versus you go to Costco and you buy that big honking thing that's swole right up. You cook it down, it shrinks like a hockey puck. And 10 minutes after you eat it, you're hungry.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, you're just unsatisfied.
You might as well just be eating cardboard.
Absolutely. We noticed that, yeah, with the turkeys we've bought, with the chicken we've bought from people that.
Don't talk to me about turkeys.
It's amazing. I know you had a good.
We had a bad run with turkeys. Lessons were learned.
I was waiting for the CFIA to phone and say somebody has lost all their turkeys. Did they get their feed from you?
So I've laid awake at night, wondering where we went wrong with turkeys. So the mother-in-law got the turkeys initially. It wasn't part of the plan. They showed up at the in-laws' place. They had them with the chickens, the meat chickens. They ran out of space in their coop. Said, "Can you take the turkeys?" We brought the turkeys here, thinking they're of a significant age already. They should have figured out how to eat and drink. I probably should have kept a couple chickens in with them to show them how to eat and drink, because I'm pretty confident that they either died of thirst or died of hunger, because they literally would die within 6 inches or a foot of the water bowl.
I was telling my mom about that, and she said, yeah, when they used to raise turkeys when they were little, they kept them with the baby chicks because they could watch. And then actually I had a young couple, actually local to here actually, and they got some feed the other day, and they said, yeah, that's what they do. They got to put like shiny stuff in the water so the turkeys will be interested and will peck at it and get something to drink, and then watch the baby chicks learn how to eat. So
if we do turkeys again, well, even if we do chicken, or I shouldn't say if we do chickens. Chickens isn't every year. It's a guarantee we're going to do chickens here. But if we do turkeys again, they're going to be kept with the chickens. And even when the chickens go out to pasture, I'm probably going to leave maybe 2 or 3 chickens in with the turkeys for the full duration.
As turkey tutors.
As turkey tutors, yeah. I never thought it's a good phrase. I like that. But yeah. So dumb. Lessons were learned. It was a hard lesson. It was a sad lesson. In reality, I don't even really like turkey that much. You know, I feel obliged to eat turkey like 3 times a year.
Yeah.
Easter, Thanksgiving, and maybe Christmas. But usually, if I'm at a family function during those 3 days, I'm probably going to go for ham anyways. We always cook a turkey and a ham.
Yeah.
I'm more of a pork fan. It's got some flavor to it. It's got some juiciness to it.
Well, I know the turkeys that we got in the last few years, locally raised, you know, holy boy, oh boy, those are juicy. I was never a white meat fan. I had to go too dry, and I wasn't a cranberry guy. But wow, what a difference from that sad 10-pound butter ball. Effectively, it's a basketball wrapped in with a butterball sticker on it. When you upgrade to it is different, and that's I haven't found something yet that I've been like, well, I don't know, I could get it at the store, it wouldn't matter to me. I have not found that yet.
No, as a consumer, if you actually gave a shit about what you ate and you did some research on butterball turkeys, you actually cared about what you fed your family, you probably would never buy another butterball turkey ever. You'd probably feed them Swanson's turkey dinners before you would ever feed them a butterball chicken or butterball turkey.
Well, that was highlighted on the live stream we did about consumer impact on their shopping habits. And I'll never forget when my dad read it in the newspaper, because it as involved in ag as he is, and as passionate about ag. And the crazy thing about that guy, he is very passionate about the treatment of livestock, and he doesn't even have any. but he is like totally against shipping livestock 7.5 hours when we could just process them here.
Yeah.
But he was reading in the flyer, and it was something like buy a case of Coke and get a free turkey.
Yes.
And that set him off. And he said,
How
why?
criminal
He said,
is
why
that?
isn't it the other way? You know, you should pay for the someone put a lot of work into this as opposed to Coca-Cola that just shredded some sugar cane and added a little bit of water and whatever the hell else is in there.
Flavoring.
And so, but yet that's the thing with value. But like you said, actually probably a Butterball turkey, nothing against the farmer raising the turkey. I mean, he's putting in his time too, but it probably does have less value than the box of Coke.
So that's the other thing too, and maybe that's a subject for a future live stream too, is the victims in commercial farming. Because the guys that are raising commercial pork, commercial beef, commercial poultry are ultimately still trying
Absolutely
to make a living, and that there's still an aspect of animal husbandry in what they do.
They're unfortunately a cog in the wheel.
They still endeavor to provide what they can, but they're held victim. They're at the mercy of these commercial companies.
Yeah.
That feed them a pittance, and they're a slave to the industry.
Absolutely.
And the product that they produce is not good. I'll die on that hill all day long. I've got nothing bad to say about the individuals that are attempting to make food in an industry for millions of thankless individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And I still believe that the root sin, the bottom line sin, is that people don't take any accountability for where their food comes from.
No, none, zero.
And there's a lot of people that they sit on a pedestal and the farmer's criminal, the farmer's trying to poison us. Well, you're paying that farmer $50 for a 300-pound pork. You're paying that's what he pulls out of it.
Yeah.
How is he supposed to make a living off of that? Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So you Jew the guy down so far, it's criminal. It's absolutely criminal, and you expect shortcuts not to be taken. Well, it's not even that the farmer chooses to take shortcuts. The middleman, the people that own the contracts, tell you exactly how that pork must be raised, what they must be fed. Do the same with chickens. See these chicken barns with 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 birds in it, and the farmer pulls out 50 cents on a chicken.
Yeah.
You think you're going to get a good product there?
Yeah, it's just a numbers game, right?
And it's all a numbers game, right? So missed a couple. Chad's just dropping comments here.
Chad has the same passion, I believe, that
diets on animals shouldn't be changed gradually. Sudden changes will affect production for sure, big time. Too many quarters. If they don't slow down, it'll be a dose of Matador, otherwise it'll be chickens. Matador, I'm not sure what he's talking about.
That's pesticide for his grasshoppers.
Oh, that's
if they get to too many quarters.
Gotcha, I see.
And I mean, after the year he had, the year everybody had, I don't blame him. If there's anything out there to salvage as far as alfalfa, then he's got to get on it now.
I'm not a big chemical guy, but I mean, if it's going to eat your lunch, well, you've got to intervene sometime.
And this is the thing too. Actually, a farmer, I was loading grain out of his bins one, and you could just tell he was frustrated. He's a cattle producer, and he said, "I'm so tired of people thinking that we are just injecting these animals just daily, just for the fun of it." He said, "This stuff is expensive, and Matador is a very expensive chemical.
Yeah.
There's thought goes into this, right? As Chad just said. I mean, he's willing to sacrifice some acres to this.
Yeah.
But if it gets too bad, something has to stop.
You have to intervene. Yeah.
So he's not just running out right now because he saw a grasshopper and he's going to finish everything off, including the bees and the neighbor's dog and everything else. Yeah. There's a lot of thought goes into this, and the more I try to get involved with educating maybe the more rural or urban consumers, I get more and more frustrated at the disconnect, and I don't know where that disconnect come from. I don't know why it's there, and I don't know why it doesn't dissipate. Like you say, it's a total unwillingness on the urban consumer side to understand anything, and the rural producer is busy. We're very, very busy.
Well, you've got 8.8 billion people to feed in the world. And out of that percentage, 4 billion of those, half the population of the world needs to be fed, right? Without any input. That's just food aid given to third world countries. Half the global food production goes to food aid. And then you got so then out of the Western developed nations, they don't even participate in it. There's no participation.
No.
There's no accountability. And yeah, they think everybody's out to poison. Well, okay, well, it's not like you're pouring glyphosate into the food trough. That's not what it's meant to be. But there's a lot of undue pressure placed upon farmers to produce. The yield needs to be there because the population will starve to death. We're seeing this significantly this year. People will go hungry this year and next year, probably the year after that. And it all depends on what's going to happen with Russia and China and Ukraine and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Things could get real tough here. And if they don't, I'll be the happiest man alive. If they don't, I'll be super happy. But ultimately, if people don't start taking accountability, even if it's just buying a pack of spinach seeds and eating their own goddamn salad instead of throwing it away at a Costco bag,
yeah,
it's not going to get any better.
No.
Right. But if a herd, is it a herd? No, not a herd. What do you call a group of grasshoppers? Swarm. A swarm of grasshoppers comes in and takes out 8/4 of crop. What would you get off a quarter section typically for bushels?
Well, we like to realistically think on our cereal somewhere between 50 and 80, depending on if it's
50 to 80 bushels an acre.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So over 160 acres. How many people are you going to feed off?
So you're going to get, say, yourself 7,500 bushels. Well, we did. I've done a video on how many bushels of wheat are in a loaf of bread.
And that's the thing. The grasshopper is not going to eat all of those bushels, but it will destroy the plant to the point where it cannot produce those bushels.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
There was a huge.
Suddenly we're having 7 lean years.
A huge thing. This is back to the farmer doing what he can. A lot of the science was early stages, just go spray the outside. Right, because animals
just set the perimeter.
Just go spray the outside. And a lot of us have done that. I've done that in the past. And about 7 years ago, you could see the grasshoppers hanging on the wheat stalk and eating on the leaves, and they'll clean it up. They will. It's unbelievable. It's one of the reasons. It's a small reason, but one of the reasons we do the intercropping with peas and canola. When it comes to flea beetles and grasshoppers, they don't seem to like intercrop.
They don't like it. Yeah.
Well, I don't know why. They'll eat one or the other.
Yeah.
They don't seem to like them together.
Yeah.
Even into the fall where geese will land and they'll decimate pea swaths, or they'll eat peas. But they'll walk out of if you have a dugout, they'll walk out and eat all the barley too.
Yeah.
But if you have swath it, and the canola stalks are so sharp, they do land there, but they don't seem to land there as willingly.
They're like 3-year-old children. You put a full meal on their plate and they won't touch it. But if you just put a hot dog on their plate, they'll go to town.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's kind of funny. Selective eaters. I even see that with chickens. If I were to let my chickens just have free access to the grain mix that we buy off field, what would they do? They would selectively pick the morsels that were the most flavorful, not necessarily the most beneficial and most nutritious for them.
Yeah.
And egg production would decline, meat production would decline. We had to amend the design of the feeder actually to make so they would eat the whole thing.
Yeah.
It changed the way the animal behaved. I remember back in the old country too, like talking about grasshoppers. A long time ago, well before my era, but a long time ago, if the neighbors had grasshopper problems, they would light smudge fires all along the periphery of the farm. So they would go there, they would decimate one field, and then the population would die out because they wouldn't cross the fence. They wouldn't want to come there where it was smoky and gross and stuff like that, right? We don't do that now, of course. It's kind of frowned upon, but
Yeah.
sometimes you have to take a sacrificial piece of land and control them there, so they won't come in and just kill everything.
Mhm.
You can't control the appetite, right? Tie rocks on. Look at that. He's wondering if we're cutting hay yet.
I heard one guy by the city was.
Yeah, we're probably at least 2 weeks away. I know, some, like I said, some of the pastures are 5 feet high, but the actual hay field we have, we're not going to hay it this year. We're going to let the cows loose in it this year again, let it get some more established. But the stuff out in Rio Grande that we do with the father-in-law, that'll be probably mid-July. They haven't had the rain out there that we had, though. That's the thing. Cold spring, you know, and then late rain,
Yeah.
you know. So
Well, it was tough back.
things are doing good stuff, but it's late.
In January when the ditches were flowing and then it froze to -40. That wreaked havoc on some of the legumes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, I cannot keep this lit any longer. I don't know.
Where'd we make it to? Can't see your
Time wise, we're 3 hours now.
Oh boy.
It's 11 o'clock.
And still a few people hold it on strong.
7 people watching.
Amazing.
So I mean, some real,
Well, we
some real
appreciate
legends
that.
out there. Eh?
We appreciate that.
Yeah. 11 o'clock. Oh, it's still daylight outside. Just getting dusky out there right now. That's always a scary thing too. The 21st of July or 21st of June came, and it's crazy how when the weather's poor, the days are so long. But the minute you hit the equinox, how short the days get every single day. How quickly that
you realize
declines.
just how far behind you are for the summer and the summer chores.
Yeah. Yeah, you might have warm weather, but the days are short. You know,
it's crazy.
You get some real long, shitty days in May. What do you think? Should we wrap it there?
That's probably enough.
3 hours, that's enough. So next time we're going to come back, we'll pick a different cigar, maybe one that's not so girthy.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have anything this girthy anymore.
No, these are the last two.
These are the last. There's a lot of cigar.
It is. It's a lot. There's another.
The whiskey was a win, I think.
It was a win. I might even have a little splash
we'll
more.
Definitely have to have an after show whiskey.
Absolutely, as always.
Maybe next time. Are we're good? We're going to talk about mental health next
I think we should. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I might throw a poll up just for fun, but this probably next
just
topic
see,
will be
maybe somebody really wants to talk about grasshoppers or
We'll
something.
see. We'll see what we got there.
Okay. Well, perfect. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for watching.
Have a good night. Enjoy the long weekend. Happy Canada Day.
Canada Day. What are we now?
150. 150. Yeah.
150 something. 155.
It's been a while since 150.
Yeah, I think it was 2017.
So, yeah.
Okay. Good night, everybody.